Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the Next Gen Racing Formula Fixed FF1600 series as hosted on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. And today marks round 3 of 6 as brought to you live circuit side here in Japan at the legendary Tsukuba circuit. Known as the time attack circuit of Japan, introduced in the 1970s as a means of trying to bring the younger generation of Japan into the world of motorsport, the circuit has gradually gone from being a domestic cup series location to a location that's all about the time attack, where the art is to take your car around the circuit as rapid as possible, as if you can get under a minute and also under the 50-second barrier. Indeed, this circuit famed annually now for holding the time trialing sessions, which have seen only a limited number of teams and drivers go below 50 seconds, but today it'll be host to our drivers in their Ray Engineering FF1600 machines as they look to take on the circuit in full brunt and look to achieve the best possible lap time. Why is lap time so important around here, I hear you ask? Well, if it's narrow road surface and limited number of places for overtaking, this is a circuit where track position is absolutely key, albeit that's not to say that there's no opportunity for overtaking, and indeed with a variety of corners around the 1.26 mile circuit, with most of them being sweepers or hairpins, it means that if you're going to go for an overtake, you need to be bold on the brakes and smart with the pass. But as our drivers get ready to go racing today, this broadcast is being brought to you live via free media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you may be tuning in via one of the 2 official Next Gen Racing channels, and that can be on YouTube at youtube.com and search for Next Gen Racing. Alternatively, via Facebook by going to facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. Alternatively, you may be tuning in right now via Twitch, and we welcome you at twitch.tv/TX141. Who is TX141? Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I will bring you all your racing action tonight and indeed for the entirety of the series. But going into tonight, let's take you through our schedule. At times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1, and as we can see, in just under 18 minutes time, we'll be heading to qualifying for our 15-minute session, while all of our drivers will be out of the circuit at 8:30 this evening, looking to achieve their best possible times to set themselves up well on the grid for race number 1. Race 1 will immediately follow. That'll be the short sprint at 8:45, 15 minutes in duration. It'll be 4 attack from all our drivers from start to finish, and the results of race number 1, of course, influence the grid for race number 2. And race number 2 will be setting up on the grid at approximately what will be 9:10, and we're back just before that to give you the build-up and more for the second race of the day, which will be the longer sprint, and that'll be 20 minutes in duration, and with a reverse grid to go with it, and more on that very shortly. But welcome to all of you tuning in. We say hello to all you guys and girls tuning in via any of the free chats. We can see all of them, and let's welcome in the season's calendar and talk about it thus far and what still lies in wait. Now, as we can see, 2 rounds already passed, and today it is the 11th of May. But we start off back on the 27th of April with visits to the United Kingdom, and in particular to the Alton Park Island circuit. A classic circuit for Formula Racing, indeed for touring car racing, but our fixed formulas made the way on around the circuit and absolutely delivered spectacular racing in the season opener. And after that, we made our way over to the United States of America for last week's round at Lime Rock Park. Indeed, on the 4th of May there, we saw the sweeping cores of the circuit catch out many, and indeed, both races saw plenty of instants, but also saw some absolutely brilliant driving from the likes of Doble and Chris Knox in the Pro class, and also in the Pro-Am class, Mike Sykes moving into the championship lead, albeit with the mixed fortunes of many, but not so for Mark Sykes. But today, of course, it is the 11th of May, and therefore we are in Japan at the Tsukuba circuit, and after this round, we won't be having a mid-season break. Indeed, we charge straight into the second half of the season. We'll return to the United States of America next time out in round number 4 on the 18th of May, and that'll be in the state of California rather than the state of Connecticut, where Lime Rock Park is, and indeed we'll be making our way to the west coast for the legendary Laguna Seca Raceway, and with it the Corkscrew Chicane. After that, we'll then make our way over to Norway, and indeed in continental Europe, we'll see our drivers being placed on the Ridskogen Motor Centre circuit on the 25th of May, and a circuit which is all about technical ability and also plenty of corner variety, and our drivers will do well there to keep it on the circuit. And then the final round of the season, round number 6, which will also be televised live, that'll be on the 1st of June, and that'll be in Australia, Oran Park. A circuit that no longer exists. Indeed, now it's a housing estate, but in its past life, it was a brilliant racing circuit. Indeed, we're going to be honouring the Oran Park circuit with a visit, and we look forward to that one most definitely to wrap up the calendar. But as we get ready to go racing today, let's give you a reminder of the championship standings after 2 rounds. Start off with the overall championship. And we can see here Isaac Doble leading the way by 4 points over Chris Knox. Both drivers put in great performances at Lime Rock Park, and their consistency and their pace has proven true, and now they are starting to try and break away from the rest of the field. But Chris Midmark only a further 6 points behind. Midmark could be the one to potentially get in between the pair of them or take the championship lead today if results do go his way. Meanwhile, Jason Cooper not in attendance after the first round, so last week we didn't see Jason Cooper. We do hope to see him return in this round, if not future rounds, given his stellar pace at Alton Park. He's in P4 and 54 points, with 8 points clear of Daniel Lewis, and then we do have Vita Pops there in P6. A further 2 points behind on Vita Pops, not in attendance today, unfortunately due to personal circumstances, but we'll definitely see the Brazilian back in the second half of the season. We wish him well, with Mark Sykes there, your leading prime driver in P7 on 32 points, only ahead of Jamie Dory based on result count, with the pair tied on points, and then P9, P10 going to Josh Brown and Adam Delmont. Outside the top 10 by a single point, it's Daniel Stimon there in P11 on 21 points. He's 2 clear of both Callum Jenkins and Nick Clemens, with Gareth Williams and Daniel Lewis completing the top 15. We then have Lars Fisher in P16 ahead of Joseph Doble, with Bernardo Colbe and John Meredith ahead of Alan McCain in the run's P20. Outside the top 20, haven't scored points. We can see that, in fact, yet to score any points. We have Marcus Hudson, Costa Chansconsonantidou, Eric Gaznell, Verkin at Dukalglulu, then we have Gareth Hicklin at P25 ahead of Garen Allen, Jesmond Tan, Chris Vasilov, Lewis Benny and Loveen Kishore, and then we also have Mark Aerosmith, Mark Hall, Martin Shirley, Ole Martin York, Rhys Saunders, Sam Smith, Stuart Brearley and also Teague Ashburn. We hope to see some of them on circuit today. Now, coming on to the individual class classification standings, we can see here in the Pro Drivers' Championship, Isaac Doble leads the way by a single point over Chris Knox. Indeed, the rivalry between the two of them really being emphasised in the Pro class here. It does look as though Chris Knox is the faster of the two drivers, but Isaac Doble has had the consistency go his way by comparison. But then again, Chris Knox is not shy of consistency as well. We definitely saw that Alton Park. Chris Midmark in P3, a further weight is there 9 points off of the top two, and therefore he'll be looking to try and continue to break away for the rest of the field and keep close to the top two over the course of today's two races, with Jason Cooper leading the rest of the field there in P4 on 53 points, one clear of both Daniel Lewis and Vita Pops. The difference between the two of them there, result count back. Indeed, for Lewis is a great opportunity today for him to get one step ahead and break away from the Brazilian. In P7, Jamie Dorian 38 points, a difficult time last time out of Lime Rock Park. He'll be looking to right the wrongs of the USA today, and will be able to do so with the fact he does have Gareth Williams, fellow next-gen racing driver in P8, and Gareth Williams also still trying to come to terms with the FF1600 machine. Indeed, it has caught out a number of our pro drivers. Adam Delmont in P9 ahead of Nick Clemens, who completes the top 10, and then they're further 2 points behind Best the Rest, and final pro driver Joseph Doble in P11 on 20 points. Within in the pro class, see that the story here is a little bit different. Our top two are separated by 10 points, and it's Mark Sykes who leads the way by quite a margin of 10 points here, albeit it doesn't sound like much. When it comes down to it, even the smallest volumes of points could be quite significant come the end of the series, but he'll be looking to hold on to that championship lead today, with Brown then a further 4 points clear of Callum Jenkins, and for Josh Brown, it's all about cementing that P2 position and mounting the change to Sykes. For Callum Jenkins, meanwhile, it was a difficult day at Lime Rock Park. Indeed, was looking fast, but a couple of incidents cost him dear, but Daniel Stimon a point behind there, and Daniel Stimon are really rising to the challenge of Lime Rock Park, and the priority for Rossum's Universal Robots, knowing that the top three is within his grasp today. Daniel Lewis in P5 on 58 points, 10 clear at John Meredith, with Lars Fisher, Bernardo Colbe, Alan McCain, and Marcus Hudson completing the top 10, and it's Sam Smith who's just outside the top 10 based on result countback, and he really did have some difficulty at Lime Rock Park with the car last week, but we hope to see him return to fighting form today, and well, with that, could he jump back into the top 10? That'll be the change he's confronted with. Now, as we come onto our circuit for today, it is, of course, the Tsukuba circuit, but our drivers will be taken to the 2000 full layout. Today it's the full Tsukuba layout, albeit minus the MotoGP chicane, and this circuit located near the town of Shimotsuma in the Ibaraki Prefecture of Japan. As we said earlier, synonymous with the Time Attack series hosted at Tsukuba on a yearly basis, and this circuit is all about driving technique. You will be hard-pressed to find a circuit as small as this in terms of its size on both the venue and also its length of 1.26 miles that crams in just so much technical testing ability here. For as our drivers make the way down towards turn number 1, or it should be up to turn number 1 with a small elevation rise into the braking zone, they'll find the long right hand that sweeps all the way around in a low gear, really causes our drivers to have to nail a late apex and get back on the power to full throttle as soon as possible. Get it right and they'll charge away for the kinks of 2 and 3, which are all about direction change and setting up the car for the braking zone, the harshest braking zone on the circuit at turn number 4, while drivers will find themselves going into the U-shaped hairpin, where it's all about connecting it together via a V-shape approach. Clearing turn number 4, they make their way up towards turn number 5, and do not be fooled, it looks like quite a long run to turn number 5. It's a very short run, in fact, and therefore as our drivers make their way into the right-hander, they've got to very quickly get the car to the left-hand side of the circuit for the turn 4 hairpin to set up and open up the right-hander corner, and as they come out of turn number 5, then they need to get nice and close to the apex of 6 and feather the throttle as they carry the way through to the kink of 7 and break their way into the second hairpin to turn number 8. Turn number 8, a heavily cambered corner, means our drivers are able to bury the car into the apex a little bit more. As they come out the corner, they'll return to full throttle immediately as they charge their way down the back straight and up towards turn number 9, and the back straight in the run tonight is where we'll see most of the overtaking opportunities presented, as our drivers will get close and battle side by side under lift-off and coast into turn number 9 or on the brakes if they feel fortunate enough. Coming through the long sweeping right-hander, it's all about getting the apex curve nailed on and the use of the rudder fair and corner exit to carry the speed across the start-finish line and up to turn number 1 once again. And we'd just like to take a brief moment and say thank you to iRacing for their wonderful simulator and of course their brilliant circuit maps, this one of course being one of them provided by iRacing. But as our drivers get set and ready to race, of course let's give you a reminder of the rules. We can't go racing without them, and in terms of setup, this is a fixed setup series where drivers are given a setup ahead of each and every round as provided by NXTGEN Racing. Driver class wise, they shall be finalised as of round number 3. So what that means is after today, our driver classes will be locked in, barring any potential extenuating circumstances, such as a driver joins midway through round number 4, and then we do have to change the class in round number 5, albeit they will be set to the pro class by default and then demoted if deemed necessary. And in the sprint races, the race 1 grid shall be set based on results of qualifying, and the race 2 grid shall be set based on results of race 1, but we should point out the finishing position shall be set based on either of the following logic. They shall be either fully reversed if there are less than 20 competitors for the round, alternatively they'll be partially reversed if there are 20 or more competitors for the round, with the finishing positions at the top half of the grid reversed. So what does that mean? Well, if we see a full reversal of the grid, which we currently will do so, given there's only 18 competitors currently expected to attend, that means the last place finisher in race number 1 starts on pole for race number 2, and we work our way down the order to the very end, with the last place start in race number 2 is the race winner from race number 1. Alternatively, if we do go for the partial reversal, let's say there's 20 competitors, it means the top 10 is inverted, with the 7th place finisher from race number 1 starts on pole for race number 2, and we work our way to the winner of race number 1, who starts P10 for race number 2, and the 11th place finishers and downwards, well, that's exactly where they'll start on the grid for the second race of the day. Now in each race shall have one fast repair available, but we shouldn't be expecting our drivers to come into the pits unless it's a repair work. Alternatively, they've accumulated 17 or more instant points, and then they'll receive a drive-through penalty which they'll be expected to serve. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. I know what you're all here for. You're here for the racing. As we head to our live pictures once again, well, as we look to Chris Knox making his way on around out the final corner. Knox currently the fastest man of everybody heading on around by a margin of almost 4 attempts in this final practice warm-up session, and getting himself all set and ready to go. Albeit the privateer, they're losing the rear of the car, and the Scotsman, I think, just finding the limits of where the grip is going to be. And of course, when the fuel comes out the car, these cars get ever lighter, and weighing in without the driver included at 424 kilograms, these cars are exceptionally light. And if you do put a driver averaging about 70 kilograms of mass, if not a little bit less, you're not looking at more than 500 kilograms is the combined weight of the car, and therefore these cars very light to the touch and lacking a front wing and a rear wing. It's a very innovative design from Ray Engineering. That means that these cars lack downforce, but when they lack in downforce, they make up with aggressive speed coming out of the corners, and John Higgins Jr. making his debut today will be learning that very quickly. But currently P5 in the number 5 car and looking to get himself nice and comfortably set. As the privateer comes through turn 1 and down through 2 and 3, we do have 2 newcomers to welcome today. John Higgins Jr. is one of them, and we also have one of our favourites in terms of we see him in every one of our NXTGEN Racing series, or at least we've seen him in most of our NXTGEN Racing series so far. From South Africa, it's none other than the privateer of Stefan Vessels, and well, we wish him all the best going into racing today, because of course he is a fan favourite, given his tenacity and his ability to pick up a car from scratch and learn it very quickly. But right now, P12 in this final warm-up session, and just getting himself acclimatised with the car, because I do believe this is the first time he's raced in the Formula Fix FF1600 Ray Engineering machine as of this round. So we wish him the best luck. We wish the best luck to John Higgins Jr. as well, and to all our drivers on the grid. And we have also had a couple of class changes since the previous round, and it's 2 class changes and 2 of our iRacing esports drivers. The first one is Nick Clemens, who has found himself now being promoted from Prime to Pro in the number 13 there, and the Britain all set and ready to go. And we have seen a demotion for his teammate Sam Smith, who you see at the back of the pit lane there. He's currently out of the car for iRacing Esports. The number 27 driver there has been moved from the Pro to the Prime class, and that's based on the performances in the first 2 rounds of the season. But we have just 7.5 minutes remaining in this practice session, and those are the only changes to our classes. And for those of you wondering, how do you follow who's in which class? Well, if you look on your timing tower, you'll notice that some drivers have got a green sash against their name, like Isaac Doble does have a Doble Sim Racing here, and some have a purple pink sash. Those with a green sash, they're denoted as pros. Those with the purple pink sash, those are your pro-ams. And as we see Doble making his way through at turn number 9 and getting himself smoothly out the corner, well, he's all going to be set. And indeed, the 2 brothers are Isaac Doble and Joseph Doble, both racing in this series, albeit Isaac right now down in P9. And meanwhile, Joseph Doble, as he makes his way out of the pit lane, well, in fact, he's in the pit still, so he's waiting to go, we should say. That's a glitch in our timing tower, but he's currently P2. He's 4 steps off Odox's time, but then again, it's all going to be about the consistency here, as well as being able to push over a single lap, because we're seeing a number of drivers go for spins on their practice laps here, and it's so easy to get it wrong at Tsukuba circuit, given the fact that you want to push as hard as possible. It's the nature of the beast when you're at a circuit which requires you to have the ultimate track time, in the fact the more and more you push, the more likely you're going to push yourself into a potential mistake, which sounds obvious, but with that, it means that all of our drivers will be operating at a very high risk threshold in terms of pushing hard for that ultimate reward, which is potential pole position or winning the race. But in return, if they push it too hard, they will lose it all by finding themselves falling down to the back of the pack. There's John Meredith here in the number 6 Chemical E Motorsport car, makes his way across the timeline and down towards turn number 1. We're up towards it as he comes towards our camera. You also notice that other drivers will take very different lines to the corners around here, and there are multiple lines to each corner in terms of the extended apexes, such as turn 1 and also turn number 9, but also you do have some rather different approaches to the turn 4 and turn 8 hairpin in order to set up potential overtaking moves versus getting the ultimate lap time. And some drivers will go for V-shape approaches, and sometimes our drivers will point the car in towards the corner apex, given the amount of rotation that's available in the FF1600 machine, and therefore we can expect some drivers to be very aggressive under braking, and then maybe some last ditch moves under braking as well, albeit we'll have to wait and see. But as we see Alan McCain now, he's got a wounded car and he makes his way back to the pit lane. That's not the way he's wanted it to go in the 2-1-2. You can be certain of that. Meanwhile, we look from here to Daniel Stimman, as we see the privateer for the Czech Republic making his way through the right-hand return at number 8, and we'll currently P15. And it's interesting to see how on our timings how we do have currently that split of the pros and the primes of the field, and it is literally a split in terms of all of our pros are currently setting times that are faster than all of our pro-abs, and it is Chris Knox is the fastest man of everybody and in the pro class up there, and meanwhile in the prime class it's Bernardo Colbe who is the fastest in the primes by the best part of what is that 1.5 tenths over Callum Jenkins, albeit with of course practice times can only be read into so far, and it will come down to those qualified times where it's met in anger. But as we look to Nick Clemens making his way on around, in himself comfortably set here in the number 13 car, and coming all the way up towards turn at number 8. I'll be interested to hear from Nick Clemens at some point as to why he runs with the number 13. Does he just see it as a number, or is it perhaps a good luck charm, where the number 13 of course is associated typically with bad luck, but he seems to want to think it's good luck as a minimum. And as he heads up towards turn at number 9 through the right-hander, we'll just carrying all the speed around there as we see one driver getting it wrong, and I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, oh goodness me, Clemens going into the side there of what was the Chemical E Motorsport number 6 car of John Meredith. Well, John Meredith getting it wrong, and Clemens with a wounded car there, having to be towed to the pits once again. Well, Clemens had a bit of misfortune. Meanwhile, Jamie Dory making his way through turn at number 4 and now up towards 5 and getting himself sweetly set in. And you can see there that importance of getting the car to the left-hand side for turn number 5 to completely open up the corner. A very tricky corner sequence to get right, turn 4 in towards 8, because of the fact the corners come hard and fast. Or as he breaks his way down to turn 8, the rear letting go and just trying to be a bit too aggressive there on the downshift, and that's what's caused the car to lift up on that rear end. And that's the thing with these cars, of course, pushing them hard. It's a very fine line between control and being on the edge, and Jamie Dory finding that as he makes his way down the back straight. And meanwhile, we look to Chris Midmark for Midmark Motorsport as he comes on through turns 6 and 7, and the Swede, well, of course, right up there last time out in what was the Lime Rock Park circuit, but today, going for the classic course at the 2000 full out to Tsukuba, at the bottom of the standings currently for the pros, albeit he's in P11, he's ahead of all the primes. But I wonder if for Midmark, perhaps today this circuit is not one that he typically favours, or does not find himself going too strongly out, and it might be about some damage limitation as he comes through the final corner, goes very wide there on cold tyres, I suspect. makes his way up towards turn number 1. And as he does, of course, it's going to take quite a few laps to get the car up to temperature and in the right place when it's ready to go racing. So therefore, for all the drivers as well, they'll have that in mind in qualifying. But with the lap time here being just under a minute, they're going to have plenty of qualifying laps. So we're going to expect those times to continue to evolve over the entirety of the session. I think Midmark right now, if he does feel as though he's got a bit more time, he's not showing it, but otherwise it may be a little bit of a confidence test, this one. As meanwhile, Jamie Dory finds himself going a bit wide there, coming out of turn number 8 to 9. In fact, going through 9, the car going on to the gravel, will just avoids the wall, but very close to the wall there for Jamie Dory. And as he brings it back together, well, that could have been far, far worse. It could have been a trip to the pit lane. All about feet there for Dory. He'll be just blessing himself in the fact that he was able to miss the tyre barrier, but ever so close as he comes through the right-hander and down towards turn before he charges. We're now only a minute away from going qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, and as Callum Jenkins just comes all around to go on to one more lap of this practice session, albeit I don't think he's going to get to finish it for Team Hard. The number 19 driver here, finding quite a bit of pace in the Pro class. As we said earlier, only 1.5 tenths off Bernardo Colbe's time, albeit, of course, these times only practice times. They're not the final times of the day, and we'll start to see those shine through very shortly when we do head into that qualifying session. But place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. Who do you think is going to be on pole? Do let us know who you're cheering on in your respective chat, whether you're joining us by YouTube, Facebook, alternatively Twitch. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi. Let us know how your week's going. Indeed, if it's not been a great week, I do hope that a little bit of racing today can help bring a smile to your face, because at the end of the day, this league is what it's all about. And of course, a reminder, this is NXTGEN Racing's free league. It's the league that we host in order to give everybody the opportunity to compete, where all of the league, from what is the car being utilised, i.e. the Ray Engineering FF1600, through to the circuits of which our drivers are racing entirely free within the iRacing package. So indeed, if you're sat there right now looking for a free league, then do think about contacting us. But meanwhile, speaking of contact, we now come into contact with the qualifying session. It is going to be 15 minutes, and it's away and a go for all of our drivers. They make the way out to the pit lane and look to set the best possible time here in qualifying. And well, with that time, as we load the circuit map back up in the right-hand corner, top right corner of your screen, now it's all going to come down to pushing as hard as possible. Albeit, what can we expect in qualifying in terms of how our drivers will approach this? Well, firstly, is slipstream pivotal to success around here? The short answer, no. The only place you want to get a toe is going down the back straight, if that, and that is marginal in the fact what you gain there, you may lose out in dirty air going through the final corner. So as we do see Isaac Doble making his way out to turn number 4, 5 and down towards 6, 7. I believe Jamie Dory's got it wrong, and everyone having to take a bit of a cautionary approach to turn 8 hairpin as they make the way through the right-hander and down towards turn number 9. But of course, we'll see our best qualifying laps start to come in around lap 4 and lap 5 in anger, and that'll be, of course, where our drivers now have those brakes and the tyres up to temperature. As meanwhile, Gareth Williams, who's known in full, making his way up towards turn number 9 and flowing on through. And the number 1 driver here coming all around, yet to notch you in this series as we're to understand it, or indeed my memory serves me. But as he comes up towards turn number 1, he'll be hoping perhaps today's the day he can find himself right up there on the podium, if not taking an overall win. We're coming on through the corner with slipstream not being too valuable here, given the fact the amount of dirty air you'll take from corner to corner for the opening 80% a lap will really hamper your ability to turn into corners. Well, what else can we expect? I think the thing for our drivers is finding some space on circuit to be able to set that lap time. You do not want another car close in front of you. You don't want to pressure another car behind. As we say hello there to Alex Meredith in the YouTube chat, who says, "Go on, Dad," here to support John Meredith and his teammate at Kerry Tour eMotorsport, and that's Bernardo Colbe. And well, speaking of Bernardo Colbe, he's making his way up towards turn number 9 already, coming on through to put his first lap time on the board. And what's it going to be as he comes out the final corner? John Higgins Jr. with the first try to cross the line. A 58.503 for Higgins Jr., a 58.692 for Colbe, as he does lock up there briefly into turn number 1. As he brings the car out, we've still got more times coming on through here from our drivers. Of course, their first times being listed on through. Adam Delman raised the bar. Chris Midmark raised it even further. What is there that Joseph Doble goes through to pole on a 58.288. That's 6.5 hundredths faster than Midmark, and well, that's barely anything between them. But of course, we did see 57s in the final practice session. So we are expecting 57s as a bit of a here in qualifying once the fuel comes out the car and the circuit does rubber on in. But as we do see Kobe making his way out of turn at number 8, to give you an update on those weather conditions today. Well, in terms of the weather we are seeing here in Japan, we do have an ambient temperature currently of 19 degrees centigrade and what is a track temperature of 23 degrees centigrade. So it's quite pleasant conditions. We've got a little bit of cloud over here, also gentle wind blowing across the circuit, which is not going to affect our drives too much. Of course, a headwind, alternatively a tailwind, can make or break a lap, particularly when it's a very strong one, but it won't have too much of an effect around here. And indeed, right now the humidity being 54%, it's quite pleasant, albeit it will be warming up. And indeed, once that track temperature comes up a little bit further, come the end of the qualified session, I can imagine in the race it is going to feel quite humid down the grid, and that track temperature will start to stifle our drivers. But right now, qualified to the best possible place it can be, and as our drivers continue to make their way on around, well, we do look for our weather gauge there to Bernardo Colbe, still making his way in towards turn number 8, the fastest program currently. And meanwhile, John Meredith, the other Capital E Motorsport driver, and also being cheered on by Alex Meredith in the YouTube chat, currently P16 there, the lowest place qualified time on what is a 59.33, but he's still got plenty out there, and he's only a 10th out off of Mark Sykes. As we say hello to Glenn Orpheus in the Facebook chat, who is wishing a good luck to Daniel J. Lewis, and we see him here just catching him at the wrong time as he glides to the tyre barrier there, where in fact I believe the sandbag barrier coming out to turn number 8 into 9, and what exactly happened to Jay Lewis. He was making his way on down into the braking zone. He went. I think the rear of the car is just going to let go. Indeed, it does carry a bit too much speed and trying to turn in an understeer, just creeping on in as we return to your live pictures. But as he makes his way on through and down towards, excuse me, what will be now turn number 1. In fact, he's just cleared turn number 1 and heading on or around ever so up towards turn number 4. Will for Daniel Lewis right now, it's all going to be about recovering after having to come into the pits due to damage picked up, and now making his way through turn number 4. He's got it all to again as it's a knock to a car, and that is to Daniel Stimman, who got it wrong. So both drives back in the pit lane once more with damage, and that's going to be frustrating for Daniel J. Lewis in particular. Now he's had to make 2 visits to the pit lane, and every time you return to the pit lane, of course, it does knock your rhythm, it knocks your concentration and your confidence a little bit, because it means that you're having less time on circuit and more time to get yourself back up to speed, and that's the last thing you want. As we see our drivers making their way across the timeline, and well, Jamie Dory going P4 there, but Adam Delman and Isaac Doe will go much faster. What is there? 57.9 is expected. Dory at 58.0. And when I say much faster, we're talking in the hundreds here. It's barely anything, but for our drivers, it's going to feel like it's the complete story as they make their way on around. But as we do see Dory coming out to turn number 4, and number 5, 6, and 7 he goes. Well, everything is still to be played for by him, and indeed all of our drivers out there. There's plenty of time still to come on through, and can anybody find that ultimate lap time that's still in their regard to be able to do so? As we do look to Nick Clemens, currently fastest man on circuit, and Clemens definitely looking very strong at the moment as he comes through turn number, what is there, 8 and up towards 9 he charges. Well, he's clear of pole of what is by 600 versus Adam Delmont, and we are starting to head towards the end of the first half of this qualified session. And very shortly we will be riding on board with a driver for the purposes of bringing you a reference lap, and in fact I think we may be jumping on board with what is coming up towards the end of the lap very shortly. It won't be a Nick Clemens, it will be one of our pro drivers who's still hanging on around. I think we are going to get on board from Adam Delmont in due course as we look here at Callum Jenkins making his way out of turn number 4 and in towards 5, bringing the car through the right hand. There's the number 19 coming on through quite smoothly, using the runoff curve there, and of course our drivers are permitted to use the curbs and the runoff space available, so as they keep 2 wheels either on the curbs or within the white lines of the circuit. The curbs for the track limit. But as we do see Jenkins making his way out to turn 8 hairpin, we're having to avoid a wayward car there, albeit brings it on through nicely. He has got what is the number 88 tucked behind Daniel J. Lewis, who tried to siphon a bit of slipstream, as we see Jenkins going quite deep through the corner. But as he does, we look to Adam Delmont coming on through. We jump aboard Adam Delmont for a flying lap of the Tsukuba 2000 circuit. Making his way up towards turn number 1 and braking about 120 metres of quarter apex, having to fight the car in the dirty air. They're just upsetting the car for Delman as he lets it go, but we'll stay with it for the remainder of the lap. as in fact, no, he backs off again, so we are going to jump away from Adam Delmont here. It was just a little bit of understeer into oversteer, that transition catching about at turn number 1, and I think the dirty air in front of him may have also just taken away some of the composure of the car, and you can tell when he's having to fight at the steering wheel, essentially siphon away from left to right through a right-hand corner. That does mean the car's not fully in control, and it's that which just detracts from the lap time, as we do see one of the Doble brothers there just taking it slightly through turn number 7. Jenkins is round at turn number 8. He's pushed it a little bit too hard, but meanwhile making his way onwards towards another lap. Here goes Stefan Vetzels. He's currently a P12. He's 6 tenths off of the pole lap set by Joseph Doble, as Doble's moved to the fastest of 57.629, 5.5 hundredths faster than Chris Knox. And meanwhile, drives heading on towards the timeline, including Nick Clemens as he comes on through. Clemens there losing the rear of the car, just pushing a little bit too much through turn number 9. Car travels towards the pit lane there, and well, he's going to have a gradual cruise into the pits, albeit I think he might get a slap on the wrist there for cutting across the pit entry line. Of course, the pit entry is on the entrance into turn 9, not midway through the corner, but as he comes down towards his pit box, he's still got plenty more to do. Meanwhile, we do have quite the traffic pull down, making its way through turn number 4 up into 5. This is Chris Midmark you're focused on as he comes through turn number 5 and up towards 670 he goes. Finds himself tucked in right behind Chris Knox. The two Chris's trying to find track position, and well, Midmark in the toe of the faster member of the Chris named family as they've made their way out to turn number 8 down towards line. Of course, they're not related, but they both share the first name, and as they make their way up towards turn number 9 into right end of the go, Stefan Vetzels improves to P7, but meanwhile Callum Jenkins at the back of this group starts to make his way into the final corner, and well, goes for a deep line there to get a late apex, and we'll ride on board with Callum Jenkins as he heads around for a lap of the circuit. He's making his way up towards turn at number 1 and looking to his left hand side for his brake mark. It'll be the divisions in the barriers, and as he comes into a nice late apex first gear, just smoothly through on the exit there, keeps 2 wheels on the exit curve, and that means he's within track limits. He comes through turns 2 and 3, flat out all the way out towards the turn 4 braking zone, brakes hard here, first gear, V-shape apex approach is a very banked corner, and therefore you can dig into the corner quite aggressively. Now come up into 5, roll the car in the second gear, you chuck it into the corner, then let the car stay to the left hand side of 6 and 7, understeer naturally creep in as you go off camber there at 6, through 7 into the braking zone for 8, down to first gear, through the right hander, and as he exits there, not quite close enough to the apex to nail it perfectly, but still a good run for Jenkins as he heads up towards the final corner, longest straight on the circuit. We'll head up to 4th gear for a brief moment, then coming into the right hander, downshift to 3rd, go nice and late towards the apex, let the car overextend, hit the apex curve there, albeit it will cause the car to jut out slightly, heads the line, and well, Callum Jenkins will stay P13 for now, but it's a nice lap. We look forward to plenty more from him as he makes his way on to another one. And coming up through the opening corner, he has Vetzels just in front of him there, and Vetzels moving aside in the 1-2-3 machine as we say hello to Katie's in the Facebook chat, who says good evening, and well, good evening to us, and hope you're doing good. And I'm doing very well, thank you, Katie. How about yourself? I hope you're having a great day and you're all set for the FF1600 racing action. Indeed, we are only 4 minutes away now from our first race of the day, and this qualifying session definitely heated up, and it's Joseph Doble who is currently the fastest man of everybody out there as the number 11 driver makes his way through turn at number 8 once again. Got the tyre Jenkins as well, but I think the lap times are starting to fall away from some drivers. Indeed, not everybody now finding the lap time they could previously, and could it be that Doble has struck at the right time to get the job done? Well, I think he'll feel as though he's got it done right, but the question that he'll be confronted with is, has anybody else got some more time out there? As Jamie Dory does improve to what is a 57.729, so Dory starting to build a little bit more. There's still plenty of time to go, and well, as we do see Doble head across the timeline, we focus on him a little bit more still as he goes on to another lap, and can he seem to find a way in order to just gain a bit more time and get himself safe? Indeed he does, in fact, with 57.515 of that previous lap, as our time attack is just updated off screen, and in finding that time that could be critical as he comes on around and up towards turn at number 8, albeit still could we see some last minute changes in that qualifying order, with Alan McCain currently in the pit lane, so he's not got long left as McCain, and I think he'll be worried now about what the art of possible is. Meanwhile, Chris Knox, of course, the man who was the fastest in the final practice session, he's almost 2 tenths off of Doble's time, I think Knox just needs to find the right bit of clear track. As we see there, Jenkins going slowly. He's made a mistake at turn number 9 on entry. Joseph Doble goes even faster to a 57.479. Knox no response at the moment as he comes down through turn number 1. And, well, can Knox find a response here? Because otherwise I think Joseph Doble will have this in the bag. And indeed, what a turnaround in this qualified session. Meanwhile, we look from our pros to our prime fastest driver, and that is Bernardo Kolbe. P12 currently lead with the primes as he comes on through turn number 1 and down towards 4 he goes. And let's reassure you that the fact you see all the primes below all of the pros, that's not by design. It's just the way it's worked out today. Of course, our primes are permitted to fight with the pros, so they're encouraged to in terms of the overall points championship. But as Kolbe there drifts his way through turn number 9, you do really have to drift these cars through the long sweeping corners to carry the speed. He makes his way up towards turn number 1 into the braking zone he goes. Meanwhile, Daniel Stimman has just gone faster. P15 with 58.726. But indeed, you can see on the timing tower, their top 14 separated by what is 7.5 tenths. It is incredibly close. And Chris Knox goes provisional pole by 0.05, by half a tenth. It's on a 57.427. Overcooks the run into turn 1 on the subsequent lap. I think right now Chris Knox won't be too worried about that as we see him making his way up towards turn number 4 in what I believe is the Mario Kart machine in terms of the livery on the car as he makes his way up through turn number 4 and steering clear of other drivers. But indeed, he's found a mushroom out there and he's been able to find a boost to his lap time to coin the power up from the infamous Nintendo video games as he makes his way out of turn number 5 and up towards 8. Well, right now, can Joseph Doble or alternatively Jamie Dory, who is 3 tenths off by comparison, find a way to strike it back? Because, of course, these margins, finding a tenth is like gold dust at this top end of the field. And as he comes down the back straight, I think it feels like he's got it all done. As meanwhile, Joseph Doble follows him behind as they make the way in towards the final corners. As he comes through the long right-hander, can Doble get it done? Well, I think it might be a little bit too late as he goes on to what is for him one final qualifying lap, and now he's going to give it everything if he wants to be able to go further. And we should just point out, ladies and gentlemen, that we have just had Mark Arrowsmith join the race lobby, and therefore he's going to be late to this qualifying session. But indeed, it will mean he'll be on the grid starting from the very back when we do go racing, and he'll be joining us in the pro class as of today, as we look forward to seeing how Arrowsmith gets on for the back of the field. But as we do just refresh our overlay there so that way you can see all the names. Well, we've got a grid of what is expected to be 19 cars. Will Sam Swift not take it to the field for this qualified session, so we may see 18 cars if he's not able to get the car fixed and prepared if there is a problem with it, but it is looking very close. We say hello to always there Catherine Meredith in the YouTube chat who's cheering on John Meredith, and also Kerry to motorsport. And well, now it's pushed to shove as Jamie Dory into the pit lane. And meanwhile, Chris Knox coming up through the final corner, and well, he's gone purple in subsector 2. Can he find a bit more time out there? He can. It's now 57.399. He's broken into the freeze, and well, as he does, Joseph Doble, his qualifying session's done. The same for Jamie Dory. Adam Delman here, I don't think he's going to have a response. He's snuck onto a lap right at the last moment. Meanwhile, John Meredith making his way around. He's in the pit lane, so Meredith just taking it easy at this point. He'll start P17. He'll be the last place driver in terms of a qualifying lap being set. And then we will see very shortly what is Nick Clemens kind of through. In fact, he's on the pit limiter, so he's kind of through the final corner there. But elsewhere, that is going to be, I believe, Daniel Stimman heading to the timeline. And as he comes on through, what's it going to be? P15 currently. Can he improve? No, he cannot. We've then got Chris Midmark coming around as a couple of drivers have got it very wrong there on quarter exit. Midmark dashes into the pit lane. Well, I think he might get a little bit of a finger wag there in regards to cutting across the pit entry line. We've also got Callum Jenkins coming around. And Jenkins misses the pit entry, decides to make his way to the pit lane now. A little tap to the wall, but that's his qualifying session done. And Mark Arrowsmith will complete a lap, albeit it won't be a valid lap as it is an out lap, so he'll be starting P19 of 19. That's qualified complete, ladies and gentlemen, and it is Chris Knox on pole with Wes Bernardo Kolbe at P12 and prime pole by comparison. But what a thriller of a session, no doubt about that. And as our drivers get ready to go into the first race of the day, it's going to be an interesting one. Well, as the grid is being set, this is how they line up for the first race in round number 3 of the Next Gen Racing at Formula Fixed FF1600 series. Chris Knox takes pole position by in the end 800ths over Joseph Doble for Doble Sim Racing, with the top two being followed up by Jamie Dory and Adam Delmont, both from Next Gen Racing on row number 2. Midmark Motorsports, Chris Midmark starts P5, joined on the third row by John Higgins Jr. And then on the fourth row of the grid we have Nick Clemens for iRacing Esports and the priority of Daniel J. Lewis. Isaac Doble for Doble Sim Racing and Next Gen Racing's Gareth Williams complete your top 10, with the 6th row of the grid going to the private sitter Stefan Vessels, joined by Kemi Tour E Motorsports Bernardo Colbe, and he is the pole sitter for the Prime class. We then have behind them Callum Jenkins and Alan McCain. They start P13 and P14 for Team Hard and iRacing Esports respectively, with Daniel Stimman and NXTGEN Racing's Mark Sykes starting P15 and P16, and it's John Meredith and Kemi Tour E Motorsport and iRacing Esports is Sam Smith on the 9th row of the grid, and on the last row of the grid starting P19 by himself, it's Mark Arrowsmith, the privateer, who joined in the last minute of the qualifying session. But the grid is almost set, ladies and gentlemen, as we do look to the blimp camera here. All our drivers absolutely itching to go racing. We do have some vacant spots on the grid, where some of our drivers are yet to take their slots on the aforementioned grid positions. But as we continue to look down, Gaz at Williams started P10. He'll know that he's got quite some ground to make a break if he wants to try and secure a top 5 today. We are just waiting on Chris Knox and Sam Smith to make the way to the grid. Looking further on down there, Mark Sykes starts P16, your Prime Championship leader coming into this round, and what can he do for quite a difficult qualifying position, indeed P5 in the Prime class. Well, as all the drivers get themselves set, we are waiting for Sam Smith. He's the only driver now. He should be in the slot behind Mark Sykes if they are able to get the car to the grid. But if not, as we look to the front of the field, Chris Knox has taken his position, and well, it's going to be a charge off the line down towards turn number 1. It's a short one with that, but when we see the green lights, we'll be going racing, and will it be Chris Knox or Joseph Doble who leads out 1? 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the first race of the day here at Tsukuba in Japan, as Chris Knox looks to get a good start, and indeed he does. Meanwhile, Joseph Doble thinks he can outrun him into the corner, and as they come on in, well, Doble there on the inside, Knox on the outside. They go 2 wide on entry, 2 wide on exit, but Joseph Doble has the run initially. Now as he comes back for the kinks of 2 and 3, it's 2 wide all the way through. They can do this 2 wide into the braking zone, but Knox there outside to inside, defends it well into 4, and as they emerge and go up towards turn 5, this is where Webber has to back out. Meanwhile, Jamie Dory trying to look around the outside of Adam Delmont, contact between the suspension brackets, and as they make the way up towards turn number 8, we're right now charging all the way through into the braking zone here. Jamie Dory fended off Adam Delmont like Chris Knox has fended off Joseph Doble, but meanwhile further back we've got a bit of a battle brewing here between John Higgins Jr. and Isaac Doble, as meanwhile Higgins Jr. trying to go round the outside of Chris Midmark in the run down the back straight, and as they come in towards the lift off or brake zone here, I think braking under for attack as they come on through the right hander. Higgins Jr. on the outside, he's got to be careful, he'll shed speed by being on a wider line. And as he comes on out, meanwhile Isaac Doble trying to look for a wound in, but now it's going to be Higgins Jr. going defensive into turn number 1. Onto the brakes he goes. Isaac Doble trying to go all the way around the houses, but of course being on the outside there, it costs you so much time. And as they come down towards turn number 4, well, Isaac Doble there takes a little bit of grass, but he's able to fend off. Well, it's Daniel J. Lewis for now, or is it? As J. Lewis tries to go all the way round, but I think it is going to stay in the hands of Doble for the moment. We've had an instant for John Meredith and Mark Arrowsmith further back. We'll take a look back at that as soon as we can, but Isaac Doble here still 2 wide for a brief moment versus J. Lewis, but in gets it done as they come out of 5 and down towards 8. But now it's going to be line of stone to the braking zone. J. Lewis comes in boiling hot there and immediately makes us mark our words, and as he does, for Daniel J. Lewis, a beautiful attempt, but meanwhile he had to rely on a little bit of visibility from Isaac Doble. But to be fair, all the best moves do come where it's a little bit of agreement between the drivers, and as they come in towards turn number 9, we'll run the way through the right hander. You can see there Nick Clemens and Gaz Williams together just behind trying to look for moves. They come out of the corner and onto another lap, but as they do, they've got the prime leader Bernardo Colbe behind, and Colbe has game place. In fact, he's up the inside of Gaz Williams. Contact there between Wiz Clemens and Daniel J. Lewis as they come into turn number 1, and well, that's unfolded poorly for the pair of them, but as they make the way through 2 and into 3, well, right now Bernardo Colbe continuing to gain ground. In fact, I think that may have been contact between Alan McCain and Daniel J. Lewis, and not between Clemens and Lewis. And as they make their way out of 4 and in towards 5, things settle down for a brief moment. But that's in the middle of the field. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, we can see here Chris Knox is starting to break away in the lead of this race. Joseph Doble under pressure from Jamie Dory as they come out of turn number 8, and we ride on board and look back from the rear of Doble's car. And well, there Dory looking closer and closer as he looks for a potential move here in the run up towards turn number 8. It's going to be a battle on the brakes here as they make their way into the long right hander at 9. And as they come through, Dory on the inside, Joseph Doble trying to cut it back on the inside, but I don't think he's going to be able to find out at the moment, or is he? As Doble in fact does get the better run off the corner, heading up the hill in towards the braking zone here. Of course, Doble on that that inside line. It's very hard to try and get it done around the outside, but we've seen you can go too wide all the way through. And as they make the way out, Dory there taking 2 wheels to the grass. It's going to cost them a little bit of acceleration, but I think it'll be okay there. So they both go to retard the car now into turn number 4, and as they do, Dory goes very deep. Joseph Doble force wide, and with that, Adam Delman tries to get both of them. As Delman there on the outside into turn number 5, he can't quite find it, he has to cut back in. The Next Gen Racing drives here, they may be on the same team, but there's no team's championship. It's all about battling for the Drivers' Championship points, and therefore, Next Gen Racing drives great friends off the circuit, but great rivals on the circuit. They're absolutely taking time out of one another, and we love to see it. And Chris Knox in the lead, we'll love to see this because he's now almost 3 seconds clear. As they head up towards turn number 8. Meanwhile, Isaac Doble trying to make a bit of headway here versus one is Chris Midmark as they come through the right-hander in 9. And Midmark defend on the inside. And you can see Isaac Doble trying to set up the cutback, and Midmark covers him off well. But the problem here is the fact that by covering so early, he's lost a lot of momentum. Comes back to the inside here as Isaac Doble again forces it around the outside. Can't quite find it, but he'll cut back in nicely. It's all about these cutback apexes when you're battling. And meanwhile, Daniel J. Lewis trying to find a way past the prime leader, Bernardo Colby, as he comes up towards turn number 4. Onto the brakes they go. Oh, look up for Colby, and the car goes round. And as it does, well, that's going to be all places lost there for Bernardo Colby. Just a lock up on the inside, coming in a little too hot. And now the race leader of the prime class goes to Callum Jenkins, who's in P10. And here is Callum Jenkins. I don't think he's going to quite believe it right now, in the fact he's got a bit of open road in front of him. The team hard driver will feel very comfortable at this point. As he comes out, turn number 8 and down towards 9, he can't take anything for granted. And we're speaking of taking things for granted, well, I think it would have been for John Meredith and Mark Harris, but they wouldn't have taken anything for granted. But this is what happened to them on lap number 2 earlier in the race. So John Meredith looking for a mover on the inside of Arrowsmith, and well, as they came out the corner, oh, goodness me, and Arrowsmith there just getting it wrong corner exit, and John Meredith just an innocent victim of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Well, what about Mark Arrowsmith then? What exactly happened? Riding on board here with the 46, tries to get the power down. I think he's going to understeer a bit wide, and then the rear left tyre just goes to the grass, gets the power down, doesn't have the grip, and in the end the contact with John Meredith was enough to see both of them retire. But as they make the way around, in fact they both had to retire to the pit lane, but they've made the way back out subsequently. They're both a lap down now. We should clarify on the live pictures now, we can see the battling continues, and well, Callum Jenkins in a bit of clear space. Meanwhile, Joseph Doble has moved into P3. Well, he's back ahead of what is Adam Delman, but he's lost out versus, of course, Jamie Dory. And as he makes his way through turn number 9, overtake for P3's happened off camera. But meanwhile, small wiggle there from Adam Delman, a bit of oversteer crept in as he tries to get the power down. And as they make the way across the timeline here, he's battling side by side still with John Higgins Jr. And well, the privateer looking up the inside there in the number 5 car. Can he find the space to get the job done? He'll find himself on the outside into turn number 4, and Adam Delman gets it all said and done in terms of defending. As they make the way into the braking zone here for the left-hander. Meanwhile, Chris Midmark, a friend of Isaac Doble, and will the Doble Sim Racing driver really meeting his match with the Swede of Midmark Motorsports, Midmark, as he makes his way through turn number 5. Right now, the 86 driver may not be battling for the lead, but my goodness, he's making it feel like they're battling for the win as they head down towards turn number 8. And who can blame for doing so? Every point is critical at this phase in the championship as he makes his way out to turn number 8 once again. But meanwhile, one pro driver who's trying to pick his way between the drives, he's going to look past Alan McCain, his teammate, is the iRacing Esports driver Nick Clevens. As he makes his way down the back straight up towards turn number 9. Through the right-hander they go. There's been an incident just up the road for Adam Delman. He's pointing the wrong way on the circuit. What on earth has happened to Adam Delman as Mark Sykes comes on through? With that, Stefan Vessel's coming through, we should clarify. But it has been a bit of an incident. Meanwhile, Clevens up the inside of Alan McCain. The iRacing Esports drivers decide to swap places. And I think here, respect to the fact that Clevens is the faster driver and he is being held up a little bit by McCain. McCain will tuck in as close as he possibly can to get him to get the hurry up. Meanwhile, Jamie Dory under pressure from Joseph Doble into turn 5. That's not where you normally go for a move on the inside of 5 because it causes you both to lose a lot of momentum. But to be fair, with Chris Knox now 5 seconds up the road, I think at this point Joseph Doble doesn't care what the rules are in terms of where you overtake. He's going all for it, and P2 now has the effect to a win as they make the way up towards turn number 9. But as they drag race their way up here, it's side by side in the run, and well, I thought it's going to be Doble. He's got the authority here, but Dory, if he can hook it up, he'll have a lot of speed. He'll essentially slingshot his way out the corner, and as he makes his way on around here up towards turn number 1, he's got the overspeed, but he's also been made to go around the outside outside. It's going to be bold from Dory to try and get it done, but I don't think he will as we ride on board here with the number 13 driver as he comes out of turn number 1, down towards 4 he goes, and we're charging in towards the next braking zone here. Can he find a way to get Joseph Doble to go a bit deep, because it's very easy to overstep your mark in the braking zones around here. And as they come in towards turn number 5, well, Dory there riding the apex curve, you can see just how much it knocks the car wide in terms of understeer when you clip that apex curve with a single tyre. And in towards the braking zone for turn number 8 he goes. The gap between the two of them 3 to 4 attempts on average as they clear the corner, and Dory in the tow here. He'll gain quite the overspeed, but I just don't think he's got enough. As you can see there, Joseph Doble aware of the slipstream and what it offers to Dory. He doesn't want Dory to gain any of it. He does a little bit of a bob and weave, but he's effectively lost just as much time, I think, by doing the weave as he has if he just stayed in a straight line. And as they make their way out to 9 and up towards another lap, they go on to their 10th lap under race conditions. We have another 6 minutes remaining. These short laps keep coming on in, and with that, the brilliant racing with it. And we're speaking of brilliant racing, well, Nick Clearance once again finds himself behind Alan McCain. They swap places, but we're not quite sure how it's happened, but it has. And as they make their way up towards turn at number 4, well, Clearance right now falling back slightly and looking to go hunting once again. Meanwhile, oh my good lord, we've got cars around Nick Clearance there, going around in reaction to Callum Jenkins, who's perched on top of the car, and it's Daniel J. Lewis. And well, that is very unexpected there. And well, what exactly happened? That's going to be the question that we need answers to. And I think we have got a replay coming up immediately. Well, as they made the way down, so it's Daniel J. Lewis being chased by Callum Jenkins into the braking zone. Jenkins comes in a bit hot contact with two of them. And well, in the end, Jenkins just comes in hot and mounts the forward portion of Daniel J. Lewis's car. Well, that was very unexpected, and well, almost a bit synonymous with the incident we saw between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton back at Monza in 2021, if my memory serves me correctly, in Formula 1. But as we return to live pictures, both Jenkins and also Daniel Lewis, I believe, had to come to the pit lane. In fact, Daniel J. Lewis back out there, so he's not had to come into the pits. Meanwhile, Callum Jenkins has had to come into the pits, but they've finally been separated from one another, and J. Lewis making his way up towards the final corner. But as he comes on through it, meanwhile, we look from Moira drives down towards the end of the field to Chris Knox to the front of the field, and the privateer in a very lonely lead. Meanwhile, with a gap of 6 seconds to him, Joseph Doble for Doble Sim Racing still trying to fend off the charge of Jamie Dory. And will the Doble Sim Racing driver in the number 11 car, he's finally found a way to put some yardage between himself and his rival, albeit I think Jamie Dory may be building up to a last-ditch attack on the final couple of laps as they come through turn number 9, because that gap is staying nerve-wrackingly close as they make their way on to the next lap. Coming on through, and meanwhile, Isaac Doble has found his way past Chris Midmark off camera, and well, hopefully we can potentially get a replay of how that move was made. But as they come through turn number 1 and down towards 4 they go, well, with all the progress being made. In fact, Chris Midmark at one point dropping behind Gareth Williams, and well, how exactly was that move made? In fact, I think it was a bit of defence work versus Gareth Williams. And as they come on through turn number 4 and up towards 5, we can take a look at a replay. Well, it was in the drag race here, heading up towards turn number 9, and as they made the way down, it was Midmark on the inside versus Williams on the outside, and behind them was Daniel A. Lewis at the time, or sorry, Daniel J. Lewis I should say at the time. And as they came through the right hand, Williams there being made to back off, with Daniel J. Lewis taking a look up the inside, Midmark then defending hard, and well, Williams looking around the outside again, and well, the rest is history, because at that point, as they exited the corner, it was Daniel J. Lewis putting the pressure on, albeit there Williams trying to get his elbows out and saying to J. Lewis, look, there's no space for you unless you're going to go all the way around, and that's what led to J. Lewis falling back a little bit and then going into the battle with Callum Jenkins. But as we now return to your live pictures, ladies and gents, we're at once more 3 minutes remaining in the opening race of the day here in Japan. And well, Gareth Williams still trying to make headway versus Chris Midmark. And behind them is your prime leader of Alan McCain, albeit 4 seconds behind. But I don't think he'll be complaining, given the fact he's got the 2 pros of Stefan Vessels and Adam Delman between him and next prime driver of Mark Sykes. But as Williams makes his way up towards turn at number 8, looking extremely close as they head into the braking zone. And going through the right-hander and out here. Well, right now, Williams falling back a little bit further as they head up towards turn at number 9. But meanwhile, as they head up through it, we look to Nick Clearance chasing after Daniel Stimmen. And Clearance trying to recover now after that spin in, of course, response to seeing Daniel J. Lewis and Callum Jenkins coming together. And meanwhile, new fastest lap of the race for Chris Knox, a 57.417. Goodness me, Chris Knox is absolutely flying out there, albeit he's not on camera at the moment, as he is so far ahead of the field. We will catch him in due course. But meanwhile, Clemens up the inside here. Daniel Stimmen, it's Pro on the inside of Pro-Am, and Clemens will get this move done. Stimmen will try and come back here, but with a poor run off of the corner, I think Clemens will have got this move all said and done. Indeed, he covers off the run on the racing line into turn 1, and they stay as they were on the exit of 9. But meanwhile, looking from them, John Higgins Jr. is off on the grass, and that's at turn number 5 into 6. John Meredith as well, so I think the two of them may have had to come in together. What exactly happened there? We will try and get a replay. In fact, we do have one immediately, but I think there may have been a bit of an incident. This was Higgins Jr. coming up behind John Meredith. John Meredith being a lap down at this point in the race, and as they went into turn 5, Higgins Jr. just getting a bit too close and tapping John Meredith on the rear. I think expecting Meredith to carry a bit more speed, but that's the way it went in the end. But meanwhile, as we return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, well, with what is effectively 2 more laps to go, including the one they're on, here's your race leader of Chris Knox, leading away. And it's great to see so many cheering on, I should say, in the YouTube chat for Chris Knox, including Flying Wide and also Angarak. Meanwhile, in the battle for P2 behind, here is Joseph Doble for Doble Sim Racing, still fending off Jamie Dory. And well, right now it does look as though all the steam has gone from Jamie Dory's attack. In fact, that gap has stabilised at 3 to 4 tenths. I can't see Jamie Dory getting closer based on his recent pattern, but as they make the way out to turn 8 and down towards 9, of course, the final lap, good to see it all unfold once again as they head down the back straight. And the thing that needs to be watched out for here, of course, is whether Dory can get a better run out to 9 and start the lap on a strong note to go on the offensive into turn number 1. Well, as they come across the timeline, final lap ensues, and well, right now Joseph Doble still 4 tenths clear, and I think Jamie Dory too far away. Meanwhile, further behind, Isaac Doble under pressure for P4 from Chris Midmark. Of course, these two battling for the championship lead in the pro class right now, and as they come through when it's turn at number 1 and up towards 4 they go. Midmark look for the move. He's got to be wary of Williams being right behind them as well. It's very close. It's nip and tuck between the trio as they come through the left-hander at turn number 4, and as they exit here, well, with Williams so close, he could at any moment pounce on Midmark. We could see the battle for P4 materialising into a battle for P5 instead. We're coming up towards turn at number 8 now, onto the brake shortly, and we'll stay with them into the braking zone, but then we have to peel away, ladies and gentlemen, because right now here is Chris Knox, and where it's been an absolutely infallible performance. He took the lead off the line, and since then he's never looked back, and Chris Knox will take the win in race number 1 of the day. The Scotsman in the number 23 by 7.1 seconds over Joseph Doble, who holds on to finish P2 ahead of Jamie Dory P3. It'll then be Isaac Doble P4 ahead of Chris Midmark and Gaz Williams, and then your winner in the Pro-Am class, P7 at the finish line. It is Alan McCain for iRacing Esports ahead of Stefan Vessels, with John Higgins Jr. P9, Adam Delmont P10, and then Mark Sykes, your runner-up in the Pro-Am class. A great performance for the 666 ride to finish P11, best of the rest, ahead of Nick Clemens, and then Daniel Stimmen will take his maiden podium of the season at P13 in the end, with the last finisher on the lead lap being Daniel J. Lewis, who comes on through. John Meredith's just crossed the line, but here comes Daniel J. Lewis to finish P14, ahead of Callum Jenkins, who finishes 15th, a lap down albeit, and we have had 2 retirements in the form, or in fact 1 retirement I should say, in the form of Bernardo Colbe, albeit Mark Harris, who I believe has just finished the race as well. But what a first race of the day, and there Chris Knox, I think, doing some donuts on the exit of the final corner and peeling into the pit lane, and with Chris Knox looking unstoppable after he cleared Joseph Doble and was just given the right to run right with the race. But meanwhile, Joseph Doble making his way into the pit lane right now, and I think he will feel as though that's a hard-earned P2 for the Doble Sim Racing driver. And Jamie Dory will be thinking, what can he do to find a chink in the number 11 driver's armour, as Isaac Doble the same there, a P4 overall in class, and a fantastic drive with it. And Alan McCain, Pro-Am winner, and well, by a comfortable margin in the end, albeit a bit of luck went his way in terms of Bernardo Colbe having that instant which cost him dear, but McCain kept it consistent, and that was what it was all about, and it's a deserved winning class for the 212. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, all the drivers make their way into the pit lane, and let's take you through those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And after 15 minutes of racing in our first race of the day in round 3 of the Next Gen Racing Formula Fixed FF1600 series hosted on iRacing, Chris Knox taking the win in the overall and pro categories by 7 seconds in over Joseph Doble from Doble Sim Racing. Behind them, round off the overall and pro podium, Jamie Dory for Next Gen Racing, half a second off, with then there being a 6-second gap to Isaac Doble in P4. The Doble Sim Racing driver not quite able to make it a Doble Sim Racing double podium, but still a double top 5 for them, ahead of Midmark Motorsport's Chris Midmark, who'll be thinking about how he can stay one step ahead of Isaac Doble in the reverse grid race. Gareth Williams P6 there for Next Gen Racing, ahead of Alan McCain, the iRacing Esports driver there, bringing on home his first prime win of the season. And then Stefan Vessels, John Higgins Jr. and Adam Delmont completing the top 10. An unfortunate end to the race for John Higgins Jr. after running so long in the top 5. The incident with John Meredith catching him out and caused him to drop down to the bottom end of the top 10. Best of the rest in P11, Mark Sykes for Next Gen Racing there, runner up in the prime class, ahead of Nick Clibbins, with Daniel Stimman around off the prime podium of Alan McCain, Mark Sykes and Daniel Stimman with that P13 finish. And then behind the privateer, fellow privateer Daniel J. Lewis, the last finisher on the lead lap, P14. Then we had Callum Jenkins finish a lap down in P15 for Team Hard, ahead of John Meredith, who finished 2 laps down for Chemical E Motorsport. We did have that early retirement for Bernardo Colbe for Chemical E Motorsport from the lead of the prime class due to the issues that he picked up after the incident. And then Mark Harris with P18 there, the privateer, after the early incident on lap number 2. And then the last of our finishers, albeit will be classified as a non-finisher in terms of not being able to make the distance of the race, Sam Smith there, P19 for iRacing Esports. But of course, with 19 participants, ladies and gentlemen, that means we will see this grid fully inverted for the purposes of race number 2. And it is going to be an absolute spectacle to see the likes of Chris Knox and Joseph Dole try and cut their way through the field to pick up a potential win. But still, we've got plenty more racing to come. And we'll be back in approximately 5 to 7 minutes' time for the build-up to race number 2. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the build-up to race number 2 of round 3 of the Next Gen Racing Formula Fixed FF1600 series, hosted here today in the city of Shibatsuma in Tsukuba, Japan. And well, as our drivers get ready to go racing once again, the Ibaraki Prefecture circuit is definitely delivering a fantastic racing setup so far, with race number 1 being filled with thrilling race action from the start to finish, and with Chris Midmark being one of those drivers find himself right in the thick of it from the outset. Not quite able to finish on the podium in the first race of the day, but still bringing on home a superb drive within the top 10, and his target will now be to try and stay one step ahead of his rivals when he goes to the grid for the second race, because of course it will be the full inverted grid. And with that, the likes of our race winners, including Chris Knox and what will be also Isaac Doble and Joseph Doble and Chris Midmark, will all find themselves starting the bottom half of the grid, and it means the pressure will be on them to try and cut their way on through. Meanwhile, drivers have had a difficult race number 1, including, say, Callum Jenkins, the team hard driver in the number 19 car. Well, he'll know that it's all about an opportunity to try and steer clear of danger in the early stage of the race, break away and gain the lead before the faster drivers clear the rest of the pack and come and hunt you down. And can he hold on to potentially take home a win? That will be the question, or at least a podium in class, if not overall. Well, as he gets set to go, we say hello to an even further number of you, including in the Facebook chat there, Daniel Wilkins, who is cheering on Daniel J. Lewis. We also got there Casey Ross, who says, watching this as a D-Class driver is inspiring. And indeed, on iRacing, of course, you have the rookies, then you have D-Class all the way through to A-Class with road racing. And Tsukuba is one of the circuits you start out at, particularly if you're racing the Mazda MX-5s or the Toyota GR86s. And we're glad to hear it's inspiring you, Casey. And we also say hello there to this be what is Glenn Orpheus, albeit I think we did say hello to Glenn a little bit earlier on in the Facebook chat. We can also see there Alex Meredith clarified in the YouTube chat that for Bernardo Colbe lost all power to his house, which is why he was unable to continue. That's very unfortunate for Colbe, and we do hope he's able to resolve those issues before we go racing once again, albeit with a minute left to go. It might be looking very tenuous. He may have to join midway through the race if he's able to make it back online. But I can see that a number of you enjoying the battling. Glenn Orpheus in the Facebook chat, enjoying the commentary, which is always great to hear. Thank you, Glenn. I'm glad to hear you're having a good time. And also there, Angrak in the YouTube chat saying that some great battles in there. Well done all. Indeed, a fantastic battle, including Jamie Dory trying to hunt down the Doble Sim Racing pair, finding one of them but couldn't quite find the other. And we'll carry it on as we also say hello to Arctic2 Gaming in the YouTube chat, who says rapid times from the boys. Indeed, these lap times absolutely coming on in from our drivers, and they are pushing it to the utmost throughout here. But whether you're a Chris Knox supporter fan, an Extra Racing supporter, or indeed a Capital E Motorsport supporter, it's great to see so many of you tune in and enjoy the racing action. And well, as Jamie Dory there just briefly buries it in the sand with a brief tap to the wall, we do now see the checker flag on this final practice warm-up session. And very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, our drivers will be taken to the grid for the run into race number 2. And of course, with that, 20 minutes, a full reverse grid, and who will come out on top? Let's find out. As our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the second race of the day. Mark Harrison starts on pole position ahead of John Meredith and Kerry E Motorsport. They look out your front row. Behind them is the Prime Interpro pair of Callum Jenkins from Team Hard and Daniel J. Lewis, the privateer, followed up by Daniel Stillman and Nick Clemens on the third row. We then have Mark Sykes and Adam Delmont on row at number 4, with John Higgins Jr. and Stefan Vessels on row at number 5. With the grid set, ladies and gentlemen, we have to hold that full. It's time for the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 4 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the second race of the day as Mark Harrison gets a great launch off the line and immediately holds the run out towards turn number 1. But behind him, Callum Jenkins and John Meredith are going toe-to-toe for the opening corner as they come on through. But it looks like Meredith there defending hard on the inside. He'll steer clear as they make their way out towards turn number 4 in the charge down. But meanwhile, also Daniel J. Lewis run his one behind Jenkins, and therefore the pro driver in amongst the two primes as Meredith locks up under braking. And Daniel J. Lewis has a further run as they make their way out the corner. And now he's got the run on Aerosmith. Meanwhile, elbowed wide, Meredith there rejoins on the inside of turn at number 5. But as all three drivers there come on through, and that's Adam Delmont going around the outside of Meredith through turn number 5. Car off there, John Higgins Jr. at turn number 6 to 7. Onto the brakes they go, and Adam Delmont not wasting any time here. He's pouncing rapidly. Meanwhile, further behind, we've got 3 wide between Wits, Chris Midmark, Gareth Williams and Mark Sykes, with Sykes on the outside, Midmark on the inside. And Williams trying to go between the two, but meanwhile at the front of the field, this is Daniel J. Lewis on the inside of Aerosmith, and well, for Daniel J. Lewis, he's into the lead after one lap of racing, and now coming across the timeline, it's Daniel J. Lewis ahead of Mark Aerosmith, then it's Nick Clemens P3, Adam Delwant P4, ahead of Callum Jenkins P5, then John Meredith P6, but John Higgins Jr. gets ahead. Meanwhile, lock up there for Aerosmith on the outside, Nick Clemens looks up the inside, moves into P2, and as they come out of turn number 1, down towards 4, they charge once again. I believe there's been a bit of an incident further back involving Wes Joseph Doble, Isaac Doble and Jamie Dory. Oh goodness me, there's a nasty incident further back there, and I believe that's John Meredith being caught up with a car. We're not quite sure who he's made contact with, but he's come across the front of somebody, and John Meredith just cannot get a lucky break today as the Capital E Motorsport driver once again sent down the order like a stone, and in fact the car wounded, it's going to be towed to the pits. Meanwhile, as we look here to Mark Aerosmith, we've now got the front of the prom with Callum Jenkins behind him, and I think for what is Aerosmith at this point, the top three are starting to break away, but you can see there a little bit further back already, John Higgins Jr. contemplating the move on the inside of Jenkins into turn number 9. He goes for it with Jenkins leaving the door open, and that's not the place you want to be as Jenkins. You want to be on that inside line. Gives a bit of an elbow there, does Higgins Jr. to Jenkins, if our vision is right, and as they make their way to the braking zone, well, Vessel's just behind. Through the right hand they go, and Stefan Vessel's all over the back as they make their way out of 1 down towards 4, and as they head in towards the braking zone here, well, Vessel's looking around the outside into 4. Can he get it done? Jenkins locks up, Vessel's tries to cut back, and Jenkins does overstep his mark very slightly, and the 1-2-3 drive from South Africa gains another place, and Stefan Vessel's really coming alive in this second race of the day. I think the first race has really been about finding his footing, and now he's going all for it as he makes his way down towards turn. And no, oh goodness me, why is there a car pointing the wrong way? And that's Adam Delmont looking the wrong way there. Well, he's had something go wrong out of turn 7 into 8, and the NXTGEN Racing driver going backwards for a brief moment, but catches the car in time. But we're going to have to take a look back at the number of these incidents very shortly, because I think there's quite a story to some of them. And we'll speak of the stories here. We've got the battle for P3 unfolding again, with now John Higgins Jr. up the inside of Mark Aerosmith. He gains another place there. Did on Callum Jenkins on the previous lap, and now Higgins Jr. gains one more. His next target will be Nick Clemens. Aerosmith on the outside. They're still trying to fight this, albeit I think he's fighting it fruitlessly as they make their way out of turn 1. Down towards 4 they go. And as they head down towards the braking zone this time, well, Vessel's close, but he can't quite find the space as he makes his way through the corner. But again, tries to do exactly what he did to Jenkins, which is go for the cutback. But you can see that Aerosmith covering him off, and as they come through 5, it's another cutback from Vessels. But the problem is here with the raised curves and the very low ride height of these Formula Ford machines, it means that effectively for Stefan Vessels, he can't ride the turn 5 curve and use it as a cutback mechanism. As they come out of turn number 8, you can see that he's having to settle down. As meanwhile, Chris Knox behind has just found his way past Callum Jenkins off camera, but as we look back behind Stefan Vessels' car, that is Chris Knox, the race winner from race 1, is already up to P6 and still making ground from the 17 car grid as they come through turn number 9. Now as they exit the corner, with Vessel's having a slow run, I think being boxed in slightly behind Aerosmith, and meanwhile this is going to be a move up the inside from Knox. He goes in, really tries to get the elbows out there, but Knox putting 2 wheels on the grass, and Vessel's just squeezing the door shut, and essentially saying to Knox, if you're going to go for it, you're going to take the maximum possible risk. And smart manoeuvring there from Vessels to see the moves coming, offer as minimal space as possible. And oh my good lord, what on earth is going on there? It's Stefan Vessels in contact with Mark Aerosmith, and I believe that's John Higgins Jr. All 3 drivers coming together, and I believe Higgins Jr. and Aerosmith caught together on the run out of the corner at turn number 4. Well, that is another moment we're going to have to take a look back at. Well, I think we have got some time coming up for replays, ladies and gentlemen, and in fact with that we're going to take a look back firstly at what happened to Isaac Doble, Jamie Dory and Joseph Doble on lap number 2. Well, this is as the trio made the way up towards turn number 1. We're looking at Isaac Doble, and behind him is, oh goodness me, making contact there to the rear of Gaz Williams' car. And then it was Jamie Dory in the back, and Isaac Doble in the end causing what was a 4-car collision effectively, with Joseph Doble just coming into the scene and not being able to manoeuvre anywhere. Meanwhile, after that, we then had a subsequent incident for John Meredith, and when we take a look back at what happened there for the Capital E Motorsport driver, and getting caught up there, Daniel Stimmen, I think, just closing the door on Stimmen, who was there, and Stimmen couldn't make himself disappear, and the number 6 driver just not having the day to remember at the Tsukuba circuit. Indeed, it's just not going right for the Capital E Motorsport car, as he's then made his way, but the car's damaged. He's had to bring it into the pit, and then after that, the major incident involving John Higgins Jr. was he came out to turn number 1, down towards 4 he went, and well, I think here the privateer under his own braking getting it wrong, gets the car wrong there, and as he does, everyone comes on through, and well, Stefan Vessels and Mark Harrison are nowhere to go, given the fact they're coming to the corner to find Higgins Jr. just being in the wrong place at the right time. And in fact, as we take a look back at that from Stefan Vessels' perspective, you'll see here, that's Higgins Jr. off in the distance. Aaron Smith is the closer car in front, and into the braking zone now. Vessels, he brakes his way in, and we'll see that it's gone wrong, but he tries to take evasive action around Aerosmith, and then just bouncing over the suspension rods off Aerosmith's car, and the three drivers coming together. As we return to the live pictures now, ladies and gents, we've still got more incidents to try and dissect very gradually, and we will try to do so accordingly, but it's definitely been a shake-up in the field. But meanwhile, whilst all this has been playing out, in the live pictures, will Callum Jenkins under pressure of Chris Midmark for P4. Jenkins is currently your Pro-Am leader as he makes his way out to turn number 8 and down towards 9 he goes. Chris Knox, meanwhile, up the road is breaking away at a rate to Knox. He's already almost 2 seconds clear of Jenkins and Midmark, and he is within 5 seconds of Clibbins. So Knox is making headway, but he's got some way to go, albeit he is lapping at the moment, slightly faster by a tenth a lap versus Clibbins and Lewis. But meanwhile, Jenkins here under pressure from Midmark, but he lets it go. I think Jenkins there, knowing he's the leader of the prime class, he doesn't need to fight Midmark, and he has got effectively what is a 4.5 second gap to Alan McCain, who's the next prime driver, albeit 2 places down. So Callum Jenkins focusing on the class race rather than the overall race here. I think a smart move for the team hard driver, as meanwhile Midmark from Midmark Motorsport carrying on as he makes his way out of turn number 5 and down towards 8 he goes. And as he comes down into the braking zone here, for the Swede, it's all about just keeping his cool and carrying on. He's also got an opportunity to chase down the leader of this race, or at least the podium finish. But meanwhile, speaking of being chased down, here is Daniel J. Lewis, and we're having led this race for quite some time. Now under pressure from Nick Clibbins as he comes out of the final corner. Clibbins is there with him. Both drivers taking a bit of a rally cross approach to the exit of the final corner, and they overextending track limits. They've got to be wary of that, of course. They'll be allowed to do it a few times, but if they do it enough times, a drive-through penalty or at least a slowdown on circuit will be their reprimand. And as they make their way through 2 and 3, Jay Lewis at this point just pushing hard. And I think the pressure may be starting to build. It's not getting to him yet, but Clibbins, we hoping it will do so eventually as they make their way up towards turn number 8. But as they do, and they charge their way on through, heading up towards the next braking zone they go. And well, for Daniel J. Lewis, now it's all about just tucking into each and every corner, and the Welsh M Sport driver, the privateer, knowing that with that pressure that's building from Clibbins, if he can keep Clibbins there for a while, then it could bring Chris Knox into the fray. But of course, when Knox is there, well, Knox has got the pace to beat the pair of them, and I wonder then how quickly it might be for Knox that he's able to pick his way through, because the Scotsman really has been a force to be reckoned with today. But whilst this battle continues to build, meanwhile we have an opportunity to take a look back at what happened to Adam Delmont on lap 3 when we saw him going backwards. Well, there it was a mistake coming out of turn number 7, and that's what caused the car to go around and reversing his way off the road in the end for Adam Delmont, but definitely not the way you want to go about it. But Delmont making that error and recovering from it well indeed, as he makes his way back up to speed there on the past pictures and the replay pictures. And as we look back to your live pictures here, battle continuing for J. Lewis versus Clibbins. Gap 3.5 tenths. They make their way in towards the next braking zone. Meanwhile, looking from them back a bit further, we can see battling inside the top 10 here is Joseph Doble for Doble Sim Racing, finding himself chasing down Gaz Williams. As Williams here holding on to P9, trying to keep up with Mark Sykes, and Sykes there in P9. I think feeling confident at this time, and things are starting to come his way. We have had 2 retirements in this race after that nasty incident earlier on at turn number 4. John Higgins Jr. and Mark Harrison have both retired. Meanwhile, Stefan Vessels, they have got the car repaired and they've been able to put him back out on circuit, but indeed 2 have fallen out to 17. We may see 1 or 2 more before the end of this race, given the high rate of attrition that does come sometimes with the Tsukuba circuit. But as they head in towards the braking zone for turn number 1, we say hello there to Mark Aerosmith in the YouTube chat, who says, if I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. And indeed, Mark, it was very unfortunate. You were looking very strong in the second race of the day, but don't let it get you down. There's still plenty of more rounds in this championship. We look forward to seeing you at Laguna Seca in a week's time. And well, as we move on, continue to watch Doble versus Williams and Sykes, the trio now starting to come together, and this is an interesting situation here. Mark Sykes technically doesn't have to battle these two if he doesn't want to. As they come in towards turn number 8, leaves the door open there for Williams, and Joseph Doble tries to come through, but Sykes then just squeezes the door slightly shut, and will Williams be given the opportunity. But now as they make their way on down the back straight. Joseph Doble will have to do it the hard way here. Up the inside of turn number 9, he won't be able to use the full width on entry, so therefore he is going to naturally lose a little bit of speed on approach to apex. But to be fair to Joseph Doble, that's not going to stop him as he gets a much better run out the corner versus Gaz Williams. But meanwhile, he's still battling here with Sykes into the corner. Sykes looks up the inside into turn 1, tries to get the door back open here. I think Sykes will have a run as they come down towards 4, albeit in the end Joseph Doble just keeps them at bay as they head up towards turn number 4 for Jamie Dury right on the back of this now, as the number 11 driver from Doble Sim Racing finds himself what is there in amongst the next gen race of the Festive Waters as they come through turn number 5. But as they make the way on out there, Joseph Dory making it a bit wide and coming through 5. Oh, good spin for Joseph Doble, it's gone wrong. That turn number 7 going wide, rear right tire into the grass and car into the barrier. And as he brings the car back together, the number 11 driver now, he's got to make all that progress up again and also see if he can carry on with a damaged car, as brother Isaac Doble right behind him there. And the two of them have definitely had a difficult race so far as they try to make their way back up to speed. And well, could we see Joseph Doble coming to the pit line? I think we will, as he does peel off into the pit lane, and that is very unfortunate for number 11 driver, who's on for a good recovery drive, albeit it has been curtailed quite early. But as he comes into the pit lane, meanwhile, we look from him to Daniel J. Lewis, your race leader, as we also say hello there to Elwin Elbit80 Sykes in the YouTube chat, who says, what's up, gents, and hello, Paul, enjoy the racing. Indeed, we're enjoying the racing so far. I'm glad to have you with us, Elwin. It's always a pleasure to see you in the YouTube chat, and I hope you're doing well. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, Elwin Sykes, one of the competitors in previous seasons of the Next Gen Racing Proto GT3 Championship. You'll typically see him racing in the GT3 class in that. But meanwhile, as we look to Daniel J. Lewis making his way through turn number 1 right now, the number 88 driver really handling this race well and showing great maturity here despite the pressure from Nick Clemens. And Clemens, in fact, falling back, it would seem, albeit the term have got a storm approaching from behind, and that is this man, Chris Knox. On that last lap, he just took what was a whole 7 tenths out of Clemens, and in return 3.5 tenths out of Daniel J. Lewis. And at this rate of knots, given the fact that the gap is now down to 2 seconds to Clemens, I would imagine that Knox is going to be attacking Clemens within the next 3 to 4 laps. And if he can make quick work of Clemens, he may be on the back of J. Lewis for the final 2 to 3 laps of this race if things work out in a continued fashion. But of course, Chris Knox right now has to take it from lap to lap. He cannot rely on every lap being perfect if the consistency is not there. But meanwhile, we look to Adam Delmont chasing after Callum Jenkins as they come through turn number 8, and out the corner they go. And will Delmont still trying to hunt down Chris Midmark, and Delmont the faster driver of the two of them, indeed significantly faster than Callum Jenkins. And as they come down towards 9, he looks up the inside here. Delmont Jenkins does not offer too much of a fight, and again I think Callum Jenkins just playing the art of the game, which is not focused on the pros around him but focused on the prams that will gradually come up to meet him. And that includes Alan McCain, who's lapping at the same pace as Callum Jenkins, currently on what is a grand total of 2 seconds behind. As we see at the pair here, Delmont Jenkins make the way through, and here is Alan McCain, and this gives you a frame of reference in terms of the delta, albeit on that last lap McCain gaining 3 tenths, with Jenkins having to take the wide and compromise line coming out of turn at number 9. As they head in towards another run of turn number 5 very shortly. Well, meanwhile, at the front of the field, J. Lewis and Clemens are coming back together again, and it does look as though on this lap Daniel J. Lewis has just had a poor run by comparison. And as we ride on board here with Nick Clemens, staying close, they make the way into turn number 9. Will be another 5 minutes plus the final lap to go by the time they make the way clear of turn number 4 on the next lap. And indeed, as they charge their way across the timeline, you can see J. Lewis going defensive in the middle of the road. Clemens looking for it, getting very close here as they come through turn number 1. Of course, with this in mind, it's going to be that Chris Knox is gaining at half a second a lap now. He will be there in this battle in the closing 3 laps. And well, based on that rate of closure, can J. Lewis force Clemens backwards towards Knox and get the two to fight for P2 as they make the way through turn number 5? So all 3 of them in the pro class, all battling for pro win and also the overall win. And as they head down towards turn number 8 now, onto the anchors they go. Well, there, Clemens just coming a little bit too deep. The dirty air washing the front end of the car. And you'll notice just missing the apex completely instead of having to let the car really just slide wide. But as they make their way down the back straight, that gain that Lewis has had is now being neutralised. And in fact, Clemens does have the toe. And as they come through turn at number 9, just keeping the car nice and tight there. And I think it's on these longer corners is where Clemens is stronger out of the two. He's just able to carry a bit more speed plus the toe together. And again, we'll see it here at turn number 1 as they come under braking. Just gets the car stopped nicely. But that time Daniel J. Lewis responding accordingly as they make their way in towards turn number 4. As they come down, here's Chris Knox behind, and now he is well within attacking distance of Klibbins in terms of starting to pick up that toe. And starting to think about how he can make his move on the laps to come, and well, 4 minutes remaining. There's plenty of laps still to go. There's 5 including this one and the final lap of the race, and as they head down towards turn number 8, now it is going to be an 8-second gap to Chris Midmark behind, and will this battle for the lead will stay with it for the majority of this race. Although we should point out that right now Gaz Williams here in the number 1 car is trying to find his way past Alan McCain, and this will definitely now start to upset Alan McCain's momentum in chasing down Callum Jenkins for the prime win, given that Gaz Williams is right there behind him as they make their way down the backstretch. I think he may be looking for a move here, with 1.5 tenths of steel closing, and well, looking into the inside. No, he does not. Williams waits another lap, but meanwhile we cut from them back to the top 3, and Chris Knox here, fastest lap of the race at 57.079, and as they enter the braking zone here for turn number 4, you can see that Klibbins immediately defending. It's on, and Klibbins says, no, I'm not just going to let this go. Chris Knox is going to have to knock his way past the 2 of them. Oh, and already one of them falls as Klibbins loses the rear of the car through turn number 5. It's an uncharacteristic error for Nick Klibbins, but what it means now is that Chris Knox has got an open shot on goal versus Daniel J. Lewis. The end of this race, the gap is 1.2 seconds. It's 3 minutes remaining, and there's plenty of laps still to go. Chris Midmark moves up to P3 overall and P3 in the pro class, and everyone else gains a place as a result, with Klibbins making that error. But still the charge goes on here, and plenty more to go. But it's Knox versus Daniel J. Lewis to the end of the race, and well, who is going to come out on top as they make the way up towards turn number 1? I think many there in the chat reckon that Noxie could do it, as they're referring to him as Noxie, and as he makes his way through turn number 1. Well, Chris Knox right now definitely has the fans' support, but can the Scotsman find the final step? Meanwhile, we look from then to Alan McCain, who immediately now trying to go on the rear offensive versus Gaz Williams, after Williams passed him into turn number 8 round the outside, and it's going to be a defence here from Williams. Further back, Nick Klibbins and Jamie Dory. Klibbins has found his way past Dory, who went late into turn number 1, in fact went deep into turn number 1, so their battles have calmed down. Now they seem to settle the places, albeit we take a quick look back at how the move was made by Nick Klibbins. And this was in the run towards turn number 9, side by side on entry in the battle for P8 overall, P6 in class. And as they made their way through the right-hander, well, Dory's still there, Klibbins showing all the respectful room. In front of them, you can see there the battle between what was Williams and McCain. Williams holding position, but then Dory just going deep and locking up, and Jamie Dory cost himself dear there, but not taking to the grass. So it was a near miss for Dory, using up one of his 9 lives. But as they make their way through turn number 9 once again, well, meanwhile, we look from them to the leaders, and here is Daniel J. Lewis on your live screens now as they make their way out to turn number 4, and Chris Knox, I don't think has got enough here. I wonder whether he's just overstepped the mark in terms of pushing as hard as he has. Perhaps he's taken a little bit too much life out of the tyres. It's a 1.2 second gap, and Daniel J. Lewis at this point, we're going to have one more lap to go after this one. Some smoke up there for Daniel. Stillman, he's a lap down. He stayed off circuit until the leaders have come on through. Stillman showing great awareness there. A caution for Knox and J. Lewis, and as they power their way into what is the final quarter for the ultimate time, well, Daniel Lewis right now, 1 second. The gap is closing. It is coming down, albeit Knox is really having to work hard to whittle away. They're inseparable in terms of lap time, a 57.6. Last lap for Daniel J. Lewis, a 57.45 from Chris Knox. The gap is just under a second, but with there being such limited room to go for overtakes and straight lines to gain slipstream potential, I think here if J. Lewis just can keep it calm and carry on all the way around the lap, he may have this. Gap comes down by 2 tenths, making the way through turns 1 through the 4. Knox is pushing everything. He will give it everything now. He's got nothing to lose here as they make the way through turns 6 and 7. It's 10 seconds to Midmark in P3, and as they make the way towards turn number 8, well, Knox there is closing. He gains another 10, but as they exit the corner, it's not as good of a run, and Daniel J. Lewis is able to open up a little bit of a gap, but Knox starts to come back as that's half a second coming into the final corner. It's one more corner to go. Daniel J. Lewis just needs to keep his calm. He goes a bit deep. Knox is right there, but I don't think there's enough time as Daniel J. Lewis comes out the corner. He survives the charge of Chris Knox, and Daniel J. Lewis is your winner overall and in the pro class ahead of Chris Knox P2. And what a race to the line. And then shortly after, it will be Chris Midmark who finishes P3 to round off the podium, ahead of Adam Delmont P4, Gareth Williams at P5 at the line, 14 ahead of your prime winner Callum Jenkins, who fends off Alan McCain to the finish line. McCain prime runner at P7 overall ahead of Nick Clemens, and it'll be Jamie Dory at P9 ahead of Mark Sykes P10, who rounds off the prime podium. Isaac Doble P11, and then from them it will shortly be Joseph Doble who comes on through to take P12 in a difficult second race of the day after a brilliant start to the day, but still plenty of positives to take from today, and the Doble Sim Racing driver will all be aware of that. Then P13 it will be Stefan Vettel's that unfortunate incident at turn 4, spoiling what could have been a potential top 5, and they will be your last lead lap finishers, ladies and gentlemen, with Daniel Stillman P14 and making his way into the pit lane a lap down, and shortly John Meredith P15 as well, 2 laps down, but bringing it to the end. But what an end to this race, and well, for Daniel J. Lewis picking up his first win of the season, and well, I think the team are going to be absolutely ecstatic at what was an absolutely brilliant drive. Never put a foot wrong. He didn't perhaps have the pace of his peers, but the one thing he did have was the consistency and the will not to let the pressure get to him. Meanwhile, Callum Jenkins there for Team Hard, adding another win to his campaign in this series, and the number 9 team driver definitely doing well here today at the Tsukuba circuit, and well, despite the pressure of a late charge from Alan McCain, did not let it faze him. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the conclusion of our second race, indeed all of our racing here today at the Tsukuba circuit in Japan, and let's take a look at those results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. Well, Daniel J. Lewis then winner by 2.5 tenths at the line, the privateer, ahead of Chris Knox. And, well, the Briton holding off the Scot right to the finish line with Chris Midmark there. P3 for Midmark Motorsport, a further 11 seconds down. That was your overall and pro podium, with Adam Delmont there, P4, just missing out on the podium for Next Gen Racing, ahead of Gareth Williams, his teammate. And then Callum Jenkins, P6, your Team Hard Prime winner, ahead of Alan McCain, P7, second place in the Prime class for iRacing Esports, after what was a great start, ended in difficulty in the midpoint of the race. And then Nick Clemens P8 for iRacing Esports behind his teammate, with Jamie Dory P9 for Next Gen Racing, and Next Gen Racing's Mark Sykes completing the top 10, and with that P10 also third place in the Prime class. Indeed, the Prime podium then, Callum Jenkins, Alan McCain and Mark Sykes, with Isaac Doble P11, best of the rest for Doble Sim Racing, ahead of his teammate Joseph Doble, who finished a further 18 seconds down after a late pair of incidents. And then Stefan Vessel's P13, the last of your lead lap finishers, with what is Daniel Stillman P14, finishing a lap down in the end, but carrying on to the very end. And the same for John Meredith P15, 2 laps down, but the Kemi Tool E Motorsport driver not giving up and making sure to reach that checker flag. We also had the 2 retirements early on in the race, Mark Arrowsmith and John Higgins Jr. after difficulties following their major incident. Unfortunate for them, but still commiserations and plenty of racing still to come for them in the final 3 rounds of the championship. But with that, ladies and gents, that concludes all of our racing, of course. But we're not quite done with the broadcast there, of course. As this is a live broadcast, we wouldn't avoid the fact that we'd love to bring you some post-round interviews. And those will be coming out in approximately 10 minutes' time with our selected drivers. So don't go away too far, because we'll be back in approximately 10 to 12 minutes' time for the post-round interviews to hear the perspectives of our drivers on the circuit. And you definitely won't want to miss them. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our selected volunteers. And we've had 2 drivers step forward for the first interviews of the season, and we're going to be hearing from the 2 major belligerents in race at number 2, starting off with the number 23 of Chris Knox, the Scotsman in the Pro class, absolutely standing out in both qualifying and race number 1, but wasn't quite able to make it a perfect day with a second place in race number 2, but still came extremely close to perfection. And then we'll be hearing from Daniel J. Lewis, the privateer in the Pro class, who wasn't able to have a strong start to his day in terms of P18 qualifying and a P14 in race number 1, but he was able to turn it all around in the second race of the day to hold on to the win come the closing laps. But as Chris Knox gets ready to join me, we'll be hearing his perspective on what has definitely been a tough day of racing, but one that has really worked out for him, and we are just waiting for the thumbs up from him, but we are going to get it in a brief moment. But as he now gets ready to join us, we'll be hearing from him. And in fact, as he does join me now, good evening to you, Chris. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, it's great to hear from you, Chris. And well, what a great day you've had in Japan at Tsukuba today. A first in qualifying, a first in race number 1, and a second place in race 2. It wasn't quite perfection, but it came extremely close.
Yeah, it wasn't for the will of trying. That was the plan, but yeah, a few minor incidents on the way through the field kind of jeopardized that and left it all to play for at the end.
Oh, indeed. But taking it all from the start, of course, in qualifying, we saw in the pre-practice session, you were the fastest man by 3 tenths. And then going into the qualifying session, you left it very late to move yourself into pole position. Just take us through how qualifying played out.
Yeah, qualifying was a bit of a shambles, to be honest. I wanted to try and get a 56, and I thought the best time I'm going to get that is in qualifying by sneaking a toe, but I kept catching people and then making stupid mistakes, and then yeah, I think it was the last lap or something, or I might have snatched it a couple of minutes before the end, but yeah, it was fairly close, and Joseph was right there. He was sort of stealing my draft as well, so it was a tough qualifying session, that's for sure.
Oh, most definitely. And with yourself and Joseph Doble being separated by just shy of a tenth come the end of it, and the 2 of you standing at least 3 tenths faster than the rest of the field, it set us up for a brilliant run to turn 1 in the opening race. And I have to ask, was it all about that run to that inside line on lap 1?
Yeah, I'm still struggling with my starts, to be honest. I need to actually sit down and try and get it dialed in better, but every time I've been on pole, I've always been beaten into the first corner, so it's something I need to work on. Yeah, I knew I had the pace on him in clean air, so as long as I pushed for the first couple of laps just to break the toe, I didn't think he had the pace to stay with me, so that's how race 1 played out really, and it was pretty plain sailing to the flag.
And I have to ask on that point about clear air. We've seen that these cars do become very twitchy at the best of times, but they seem to really struggle when they're in the dirty air of another car. Just take us through how it changes.
I don't really seem to notice much of a difference. You do get a little bit of push kind of mid-corner, but you do get a hell. I mean, it's the back straight alone. It's worth 1.5 tenths in a kind of 0.5 gap. When I was catching the leaders there in race 2, it was almost on for a 56, and that was purely just down to the draft on that back straight, and I think I was 600ths or something shy of a 56, unfortunately.
Well, indeed, coming very close to achieving a 56 in the second race. And with regards to the second race of the day, of course, starting from what was P17 and having to find your way through the field rather rapidly, albeit most of the incidents you were able to avoid, but I think some contact was picked up as the race went on.
Yeah, a couple of cars collided on, I think it was turn, or the hairpin, whatever that's, turn 3 or 4. I kind of went to the inside and I had a 0x contact, and I thought, great, I've kind of got away with that undamaged. And then out of nowhere, like 5 seconds later, a 4x pops up on the screen. So I took on a little bit of damage, which didn't hinder the right-handers, but certainly the left-hander, that hairpin was a nightmare for the rest of the race. The car still had the pace though. I was kind of turning over low 57s, but yeah, those guys were quite far up ahead once I got going.
Oh, indeed. And after clearing the majority of the pack, we saw you in the thrilling chase after Nick Clibbins and Daniel J. Lewis. Your first target, the iRacing Sports driver of Clibbins, came up very quick behind him, and very quickly he seemed to turn himself out the way.
Yeah, I think he looked like he put the left rear on the grass, and yeah, then he was a passenger. I'm just glad that he kind of slid wide and not slid across the nose of me, because I was too close. I would have hit him for sure.
Oh, indeed. And having avoided the potential incident there, that there was one that standing in your way at the form of Daniel J. Lewis, and you got within a second, but it looked as though finding that final second's worth of gap was only going to come on the final lap.
Yeah, I got close a couple of times, but two laps in a row into that left hairpin, I just lost the back end. And thinking about it now, hindsight and all that, I should have fired the brake bias forward a little bit just to help in that corner. But yeah, he was driving well. Just couldn't get him. Another lap, and you never know, but it's one of those ones. It was a cracking race though.
Oh, most definitely. We absolutely loved it. And I have to say, the livery on your car, the Mario Kart livery, we were wondering if you were going to find perhaps a final mushroom in order to be able to boost your way up behind. Didn't quite come, but you've boosted your championship campaign now. Pro championship leader going into round number 4. How are you feeling at the midpoint of the season?
Yeah, pretty good. I don't. What's next week? I don't know at the moment.
It's Laguna Seca we head to.
Oh, yeah, love that track. So I should be up the front again, hopefully.
We do look forward to seeing you up towards the front in California. But with that in mind, just before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, I had a couple of friends tuning in tonight on the YouTube chat. So hi to Simon and hi to Daniel.
Well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me for a post-round interview. Congratulations once again on an absolutely brilliant set of drives from qualifying through to race number 2. And we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time in America.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the broadcast as well. Looking forward to watching it back in a bit.
It's my pleasure. Have a great evening.
You too. Take care.
So hearing there from Chris Knox, the privateer in the pro class, who absolutely stormed today with performances across the board. In qualifying, finding it at the very end when he was targeting a 56, but had to try and find a way in the end to get a bit of tow behind him. And with that tow, it always made itself available, albeit he always ended up catching up behind the driver at an inconvenient moment and had to compromise the lap. So leaving it to the final moments and getting himself on pole by just shy of a 10th, this translated into the first race of the day. It was a close battle, but in his own words there, if he could get ahead and stay in clear air, then he would be able to break away. And we saw Chris Knox charge off into the distance and leave the rest of the field behind by 7 seconds. Race 2, of course, having to come through the field, avoided the majority instance, but as we did see moments ago on the playback replay footage there, we had to take to the grass return at number 4. What wasn't a contact actually did register as a contact and damage to the car. And with that, making it more and more difficult through the left-hand corners, and particularly left-hand hairpin to turn at number 4. And Vodox, battling against the elements, was able to find his way all the way out to P2. But in the end, he just didn't quite have enough time in order to be able to hunt down that final spot being held by Daniel J. Lewis. But at this point, feeling confident with his championship campaign and looking forward to Laguna Seca Raceway in a week's time, I definitely think Chris Knox now is becoming the favourite to be in the Oval and Pro categories. And well for him, long may it continue, of course. We look forward to seeing how he can carry that momentum in round number 4. But as we come from our first interview to our second interview, ladies and gentlemen, we'll very shortly be hearing from Daniel J. Lewis. And as he gets ready to talk to us, we're going to hear his perspective on what has been mixed fortunes today in both races, albeit in the first race, of course, a nasty incident cost him very dear. But in the second race of the day, having started from towards the front of the field, was able to hold on to the lead despite the pressure and bring it all home to a conclusion. And as he does join me now, Daniel, are you there?
I'm here, yes. Hi, mate.
Well, it's great to have you with us, Daniel, and what a day it has been for you. We just spoke to Chris, and we talked about the fact that you almost had perfection, and whilst it was far from perfection for yourself, you ended it on the absolute height of taking the win, your first win in the series. You must feel absolutely proud.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I'm buzzing about race 2. Still kind of kicking myself over race 1. It was a poor show. Poor qualifying as well, I might add. But yeah, it was nice to finish the day on a high.
Oh, most definitely. And bringing it back to qualifying, we saw qualifying a very close session with what was the top 10 effectively separated in the end, as I just double checked my data statistics here, by a grand total of 6 tenths from P1 to P10, and you found yourself in P8, 5 tenths off a pole. What happened? Where was the lap time you were looking for?
I sort of struggled with my first stint on the tyres. I had a little ding with a wall, and I found myself sort of chasing the clock then, rather trying to get the tyres up to temp in my second run. And yeah, sort of missed out on the final few tenths, sort of pushing too much, you know. Sometimes when you push too much, it's actually slower than just sitting back and getting in the groove.
Oh, most definitely. And trying to find that rhythm, particularly as the clock's running down, as you say, becomes ever more difficult. And I have to ask, around here at Tsukuba, what was the main thing you were focused on in qualifying? Was it, say, the hairpins, where a lot of time can be made a loss, the straight, where you can gain a toe, or in the sort of sweeping corners?
It was mainly the entries and exits to the hairpin leading onto the straight, the back straight. I found that, you know, there was more to be gained by not so much overcooking the entry and sort of concentrating on the exit. Yeah, I found that was the biggest gain.
I see. And then going into race number one, of course, starting right in the middle of the field, it's always going to get hectic, but you very quickly found it got a bit too hectic in amongst all the battling.
Yeah, very much so. I had a little bit of contact with Chris, I think, running the back of him. Actually, we sort of had a bit of a clash in braking distances. I sort of put myself under pressure, and then ended up with a car sat on top of me for 10, 15 seconds. That was quite interesting.
Oh, goodness me, indeed. I must admit, at the time I was starting to get vibes of the whole Hamilton-Verstappen incident back in
Yeah.
Monza 21.
Yeah, I was sort of keeping my head down to keep out of the way of the tyres.
Oh, most definitely indeed. But you got yourself up and running again and carried on to the end of the race for a P14 finish. Was that just to make sure you're on the grid for the second race?
Yeah, it's just like I try to always finish my races, and even if you drop back or drop a lap, I'll try and always finish them. So yeah, I think it's good practice to do so.
Oh, most definitely. I can agree with you there. And then race number two saw you starting from what was effectively the, if my memory serves correct, the full row of the grid, not full row grid, second row of the grid in P4. There we go, get the numbers right. And a nice early start for yourself, so you take the lead, and you didn't look as though you were going to look back at any point.
Yeah, I knew Chris was going to come through, and I knew he was going to be doing crazy low 57s. And it was funny because the first race I sort of struggled to do a 57, and the second race I just found a groove and did more 57s than 58-second laps. So I was quite happy with that.
Oh, indeed. And whilst Chris Knox was the man who was always going to come through the field and really hound you for that victory, we also saw a lot of pressure being enacted on you by Nick Clibbins from iRacing Esports. Lap after lap, he seemed to be right there.
Yeah, he's to be fair, he had me sweating most of the race, and in a way, I was kind of hoping Chris would catch up sooner and sort of give him a bit of hassle and maybe give me some breathing space. But yeah, every single little slip up I made, he was right on my tail, sort of swapping tenths back and forth for a good few laps. It was real good fun, actually. Stressful fun.
Oh, indeed, it looked it out there, but at the same time, you held your own, and I have to ask, what was your plan if the three of you came together? Did you have in mind a way of trying to bunch them up, or was it just focus on the road ahead and let them fight it out?
I was just going to try and stay tight on the apexes. A lot of these corners, there's a variety of lines, and you can stay wide on entry, but my plan was just to stay tight and stay defensive, and if they could get around me, they could get around me, but just stay on track, basically.
Oh, indeed, you kept on track, whereas Nick Clibbins, in the end, with only laps to go, put a wheel on the grass at turn 5 and found the car going off circuit. Then it was just yourself versus Chris Knox, albeit 2 laps to go, a 1 second gap, and you seemed to be in control.
Yeah, I was worried at this point that, you know, I'd lost 2 seconds over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 laps, I think. With a 1 second gap, I thought it was possible, but you know, Tsukuba is a real tricky track to overtake, and I thought, you know, if I can just stay on my line, I'd make it hard for him.
Oh, indeed. And staying on your line then, he got within 2.5 tenths come the finish line, but you didn't give in. And I presume the weight off your chest must have been lifted come that checker flag.
Oh, the sweat pouring out of me was unbelievable. Yeah, it was a real enjoyable one. I got to give it to Chris. He's an unbelievable driver.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And the respect between the two of you as well shows. But of course, we're your first win of the season, and now we're at the midpoint of the championship. How are you feeling with your progress thus far?
Um, like I said, I'm still kicking myself over race one. Up until now, I've managed to keep a pretty consistent path of fifth to sixth position so far. But yeah, the win sort of put a bit of a silver lining on it, and I'm just looking to keep consistent now, keep picking up points every round. That's the key.
Oh, indeed, and well, consistency is going to be a big change at our next venue. Round 4, we go to the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in California, USA. How are you feeling for the circuit?
It's actually a really good circuit for me. It's one of the ones that I've played a lot of on other sims because I'm still quite new on my iRacing career. I've only been on the sim around 2 months. So your tracks like Lime Rock and like tonight's track is quite new to me. But Laguna Seca, I'm quite used to, so I'm quite looking forward to this.
Well, indeed, and we're looking forward to seeing you out of the circuit in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Daniel, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Just to all the lads that were watching with me tonight. Glenn threw a few comments on the share that I've had, so I'd like to thank the boys that give their time up to watch, and the lads that I'm sorry, and yourself and the lads for setting it all up.
That's no problem at all. It's our pleasure, and indeed, thank you to you for joining us in the interview room this evening. But with that, Daniel, congratulations once again on your win in race 2, and indeed your performances in the other sessions of today. And we look forward to seeing you out of the circuit in a week's time.
Thank you, mate. Catch you soon.
Have a great evening.
And you.
So hearing there from Daniel J. Lewis in the number 88, the privateer driver in the pro class, putting on a great performance in race number 2 to really turn around the difficulties of qualifying and race number 1. In his own words, in qualifying, it was about chasing the clock in when he couldn't find the lap time initially on that first run. Just didn't come together, and then having difficulty. And then in the race 1, we saw that incident, of course, in the run for return number 4, which indeed saw him have a car parked on top of him. And once he did become disconnected from the other car, just having to put in the laps to get the car home and onto the grid for the second race of the day. But putting it all together in the end, with that consistency we've seen in the first 2 rounds of the season, the consistency may have been impacted and quite significantly marred by race number 1, but he came back with a charge. And despite the pressure that was leveraged against him by Chris Knox to the very end, Daniel J. Lewis did not give in. And we have to also give a mention, and indeed a respect mention to him, to Nick Clibbins, in the fact that Clibbins kept him honest all the way through the race, but then Clibbins would fall to the pressure of Knox behind, and then Knox would not quite be able to close up that final part of the gap, and indeed Daniel J. Lewis will come home the victor. And looking forward to Laguna Seca Raceway in a week's time. The same for Chris Knox. Indeed, could we see some sparks fly between them and their peers in the pro class? My gut feeling says yes, we will. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And you've just heard from Daniel J. Lewis, number 88 driver, the privateer in the pro class. And before him, you heard from the number 23 driver in the pro class, fellow privateer of Chris Knox. Congratulations to both of them for their performances today. And we look forward to seeing them out of the circuit for round number 4 in a week's time. And thank you to them, of course, for joining me in the interview room. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you have enjoyed this live broadcast and you want to know more about the next-gen racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for this series or perhaps one of our other upcoming series. Of course, this is our free series where you do not have to pay to enter, but we also have plenty of other series with varying entry-level prices, ranging from our front-wheel drive Friday's Clio Cup all the way through to our upcoming Proto GT3 Endurance Championship and also our GT3 Sprint Feature Endurance Class Championship. We can find out all about them and plenty more, including also our ongoing series such as the NXTCC, our Touring Car Championship, on our website. And our website may be found at www.nextgenracing.co.uk. And as you'll see on screen shortly, our website being the home to clean and fair sim racing for all. We at Next Gen Racing have been hosting leagues for over 16.5 years on both PC and console and continue to go from strength to strength year in, year out. And with plenty more expected to come later on this year, not just potentially on the iRacing platform, platform, but also on other platforms, including the Assetto Corsa Competizione platform. We've got plenty to look forward to and plenty in the market. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't want to go to our website necessarily, you can, of course, instead go to our Facebook group and follow us on social media. And to do so, you'll need to go to www, as I stumble over my W's there, facebook.com/groups/NextGen Racing. And there you can follow all the latest information about our leagues, indeed what we also do on both the virtual and the real world circuit, with a good number of our drivers on the virtual circuit being real life marshals for motorsporting events in the United Kingdom, and also some of us being real world racing drivers as well. But of course now, ladies and gentlemen, attentions will turn to the second half of the season and the run into the United States of America in a week's time. For round number 4, the racing will take place on Thursday the 18th of May, but we'll be bringing it to you as if it were live at a post-round broadcast on Saturday the 20th of May 2023. It's none other than the corkscrew-laden WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Some would argue that it is the American equivalent to Brands Hatch, with its flowing track surface, its cambered corners and its tight apexes, but there's one thing for certain about it: it's going to be a thriller, and in the Californian sun, who is going to come out on top? But we'll find out then. But until then, we have been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.